Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Let me ask you a question. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
We're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm.
It's Flat Earth Friday, and I'm joined by my co-host with the most, Ronnie Shine Harris. How are you doing this evening, brother?
I am super great. I'm super excited. And joining us from an undisclosed location, the one and only Mark Sargent. How you doing, Mark? We're so happy to have you on. This has been a decade in the making. I think you might be muted.
Might be muted.
We'll see if you can get on. But we have Mark.
Sorry, rookie mistake. You hate to see it. Thank you guys very much for having me. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, we're super excited. You put your phone number out on the last stream. Of course, we've been watching all of the Strange Worlds. We've been watching them the whole entire time.
Well, thank you.
And I called you. I know it came up on a different number, but then the next day I reached out and you were like, actually, I'll even do you one better. I already offered to join you guys. And I was like, you know, the last time somebody said that is when Jason and I went to the Eclipse in 2017. We went to a NASA expose.
Yeah.
And we told the guy that worked there, we said, hey man, did you know that you're living in a virtual reality? And he said, yes. And not only that, he said, did you know that you can't disprove that you're living in a virtual reality? And I was like, yeah. Wow. And you reminded me just of that character.
Nice. Yeah. And we can, however you want to get to start, that's fine. I love virtual reality. I always have. My background really leans toward it heavily because I was really into video games, to where I won my first major tournament in '94 and then moved out to Boulder, Colorado in '95 and played video games for a living. You know, during a wonderful era when we were building out the worlds, you know, and trying to figure out how things worked. And, you know, The Matrix came out a few years later and then all the other movies, you know, 13th Floor. And it was so much fun, but it gave me a lot of insights into what this world was. And it also helped build the foundation for the Flat Earth stuff that I got into later because I was open to just about everything. So there you go, my little rant. Yeah,
what a beautiful blood moon eclipse it was last night.
Right.
Did you witness it or?
No, it was cloudy. Yeah, I'm up in Seattle now, so it's overcast a lot. I don't get to go out nearly as much at nighttime as I did in Colorado. Colorado, 300 sunny days a year. Seattle, parts of it, 220 overcast days a year. So a lot of inside time.
It was too late for me. I had to get some rest. But yeah, so you started with the Flat Earth clues.
Yeah.
From a game design standpoint.
I did.
Right?
I absolutely did. Most games, and I know you got a bunch of stuff to show up on the screen, but I know it drove Eric DeBay crazy that I always said from a game design standpoint, but look, that's where I cut my teeth. That was my early career. You know, I went to conferences like Macworld Boston and Macworld San Fran and E3 and stuff like that, and played games. And all my friends were hardcore gamers. One of my best friends was one of the finest gamers in the world, in my opinion. But this wasn't like the tournament days that we have now. I mean, I worked for a living. I went into the office every day and ended up becoming a video game producer before it was over, you know, recruiting software guys and sound effect guys and artists and stuff like that, and watching it all get cobbled together. But when this was happening, we were seeing, this predated a lot of the games, the modern games that we have now. But you could see the building blocks being laid, and it's like everyone was striving for that ultimate pinnacle, which was virtual reality, which was, jacking in like the Matrix. Of course, that's going to be really tough to do because then it's kind of a medical procedure. But everything else up until that point is fair game. And let me give you a quick overview, which is every major game, and I'll just do the ones that have been popular like in the last 5 years, Fortnite and GTA and World of Warcraft and Minecraft especially. They're all built on a flat world. In fact, it's not just a flat world with a dome. Even the dome is an illusion. You can look up something in the gaming world called a skybox system, which is literally the sky is just a giant big box that you simulate everything spherical on that box. Because for people don't know, again, we make assumptions. Computers hate circles. They hate anything that with a curved edge. And what I mean by that is pixels are square. They're always going to be square. Computers love right angles. They love the math. Circles don't make any sense to them. So what they do is they simulate circles and spheres, which is, when you zoom in on anything, I don't care what it is in a video game world, if you zoom in far enough, everybody knows the term, it becomes pixelated, which is when you magnify it. In Photoshop, a great example of that. You Photoshop any image, you zoom in on, I don't care how spherical it looks. You zoom in far enough, you're going to see all the squares and right angles. And with that in mind, every game that we build, and we'll get into more of this later, is built on a big flat plane. And it's just a big box. But it simulates, but you don't know any different, and it's like, well, why would they do that? It's like, one, because people aren't going to notice, and two, programmers are lazy. It's like, why make it harder for themselves? If the people aren't going to notice any sort of curvature, then why would you make a curvature at all? You're going to make it flat. But in doing so, that creates a problem, because when we zoom in the video game world, it looks a lot like what we're zooming in here in our world, which, again, sorry, I'm going to be kind of all over the place. So lead me where you guys want to go, and what do you want?
So, one of the things I want to say is I thought it was an absolute genius move for you to affect the game clock speed in the tournament that you were in, that you won.
Oh, thank you. You're the first person to ever say, hey, that was clever.
Genius, because basically, so what we do, right? Yeah. What I do, what my major thing is actually showing that the scriptures are actually a virtual reality book. Right. So the one day in heaven is 1,000 years here on earth, and that's game clock. And so when you had said that you messed with the game clock speed, did what you had to do, that you were just sitting home free, it's sort of likened unto the way that the scriptures fulfill this reality.
Yeah. Funny you mentioned that. I got a book from a Flat Earth children's book content creator, and she was laying out the first verses in Genesis, right? The whole creation story. And if you read that closely enough, if you look at it from, okay, let's say I was going to design this, in some sort of virtual system, it lays out pretty much how you would do it, right? Light and dark, firmament, waters above, waters below, you create the land. That's straight up game terraforming. That is straight up editing. Might as well be out of one of the Sims simulations. And then you create the animal life, the water life first, and the animal life, and then you put people in there, and then you have to interact and make sure it all balances out. And granted, you could say, well, we're just imitating God. And it's like, well, for me, God's a programmer, the best programmer that ever was. Not to wax biblical too much, but in the beginning, there was the word. It's like, oh, you mean in the beginning, there was the code? Because the code is the word. And
voice activated, right?
There you go. Why not? And if what I'm saying there is, again, I'm not trying to diminish God in any way. It's like, look, we create computers and code, and what we're talking on here and everything is just tons and tons and tons of code, right? Every system we're working on right this second. But at the same time, you think it's novel. It's like, oh, we're the only ones that create it because God can't do that. God hasn't seen that before. God, allowed this to happen. Then it was, there's nothing new under the sun, as it were. So
yeah, we go deep. I have an extensive, over a decade of research into that, and for another time, I would like to get more into that if the audience out there is more interested in that. basically just having the light being created before the sun and the moon. And unfortunately,
Right.
there goes materialistic reality. Bye-bye, right?
Well, let me chime in on that really quick, which is in the first games that were created. Look, I'm older. I remember when the first games were created. There was no sun and the moon. We just made the sky lighter and we made it darker. Right? That's all we needed to do. And then later, it's like, oh yeah, we added a sun and the moon, but they didn't do anything. They were just ornamental. They didn't actually generate any light. And then later, it's like, yeah, maybe we could, can we do some light physics and stuff? Can we do that? Yeah, let's do that. It took time to do it, but in the beginning, the early stages is like, you remember, the coin op games of the day is either the screen got lighter or it got darker, and it wasn't the best segues in the world. So anyway,
The transitions weren't that good. I remember the
No, it
first
wasn't
video
that good.
games. I remember Atari, as far as back as I can go. I had the first Nintendo Duck Hunt and Mario it came with.
Yeah.
And on the computer, I remember there was like a mathematical fishing game that I learned, and I remember everything. So you hit the buzzword. So we like to talk about everything is actually pixels. We don't believe in atoms, right? We believe in pixels, and everything on the large scale and the small scale actually pixelates out.
Right. Or if you want, you could say that using like Mandelbrot, there's detail at every level of magnification, but when there's no magnification, there's nothing, right? And to that point, what we do in games is something called flashlight graphics, which is you know this, the observer, what the observer sees is what's there, but what the observer is not seeing is not there at all, which is what they do in computers to save processor power and resources is whatever you're looking at, that's rendered fully, but what's behind you, it's blobs at best, and sometimes it's not even there at all. They have to recreate it, which leads into the original question that we've all got when we were kids. It's like, if a tree falls in a forest and you're not there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. Well, now we know the answer to that question. It's like, no, because the tree hasn't been rendered. There's no tree. You're not next to the tree, so there's no tree at all. And when I was growing up in the 70s, it was like I had no concept of this. But when we got into the gaming world, and stuff, when we started building things, and we can get into that if you want. The first time I heard about the double slit experiment, I didn't know what I was looking at. And then when I got into the virtual worlds, it was like, wait a minute, why are we using, why is the same thing that's happening in the virtual world that we're creating happening here? And people don't get that, which is the in the virtual worlds that we create, the example I give is whatever game you're playing, if you're looking off in the distance, there's a mountain, right? Do the programmers draw the other side of the mountain if you're never going to be there? No, it's like the old Western movies, you've got the storefronts and there's nothing behind it, right? It's only because you're looking from the street view. And it's like, why would you draw the other side of the mountain? You're never going to be there, so what's the point? Well, with the double slit experiment, for those of you who haven't looked it up and hearing it for the first time, when you're not observing something, it acts completely differently. You probably heard of the particle versus wave thing, and that is, and everyone thought it was a mistake, right? You're watching something, the particles going through the slits, and when you turn the camera off, they don't become particles anymore. They become waves. And every time you look at it, it's that joke, right? When you're making faces at your buddy when he's not looking, every time you turn around, you make a straight face, and that's what's happening, but with the whole world.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is this happening here now? And it's, again, it bothered me to where I had a tough time when I was doing the flat earth because I wanted to go more. I wanted to go deeper into that. In some interviews I have, but the general public still doesn't get it. You guys get it, which is wonderful. I'm so happy. The general public, the people who are walking around the street, they don't get it. The Matrix is now 26 years old this year. God, I'm old. 26 years old this year, and they still don't understand. It's really cool. He dodged bullets. It's like, that's your takeaway? Because, or the movie The 13th Floor, which was highly overlooked, which was based on a German movie called World on a Wire, which was based on a book in the 60s called Simulacron 3. Simulacron, simulation built into the title, which was, who's to say, when you finally start building your ultimate simulations, like we talked about in Star Trek and holodeck and crap like that, when you finally start digging into those simulations, should be a realization. It's like, it's like, okay, wait a minute. How do I know I'm out? Right? If you get to the point, that's our ultimate goal, which is we're chasing doom when we're doing that. If there was one of the guys, you guys are old enough to remember the comic book strip Dogbert and Dilbert, Dilbert and Dogbert, the nerds that worked in the tech support, maybe
Vaguely.
Dogbert,
I've seen
Dilbert, it's chat room, Dilbert, yes or no? I guarantee some of them will know what Dilbert is. Anyway,
I've seen it.
the creator of Dilbert, the comic book strip, type it in, look it up. It's famous. You'll totally recognize it. It's like, oh yeah, that guy. IT people loved using it because it was a tech support guy and his pet dog.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, I know. I remember now.
He wrote the foreword to a book some years ago, quite a few years, 20 years ago at least. And he goes, the last invention we'll ever make is the holodeck. And what he was referring to was Star Trek Next Gen, the holodeck. And what he meant by that was, when you made it, human motivation would tank, because all anyone would want to do is they would want to spend time in the holodeck. They would make only enough money to jack into this thing and live out their fantasies. That's all they would do. And he's right, which was the paradox of the holodeck in Star Trek. It was like, it never seemed to be booked. There should be lines constantly. That thing should have been reserved all the time. It wasn't. It's like, oh look, the holodeck's open. No, it wouldn't be. No, not a chance in hell. So.
Yeah, I like to take it. So yeah, I've checked out the double slit experiment, and I find the theory of it really fascinating. There's also many other things. So there's morphic resonance, which is basically how one person can affect the entire reality. So they taught rats in one area of Earth to do a maze, and what they found was rats in other areas of the realm were able to then do that maze quicker. In modern days now, we have what Jason's always finding these crazy videos of, like dogs that can skateboard and snowboard, and then other dogs are learning how to do that. So we're seeing that sort of Schrodinger's cat, how the cat isn't there, or it is there inside the box, and we don't really know till we look inside the box, right?
Yep. The 100th monkey effect, which would be tied to the rats, which is, again, very similar. And because no way would the 100th monkey effect be just unique to monkeys, which was, the scientists tried to deny that one, that they ever discovered. It's like, you were discovered. We didn't make that one up. You were the ones that figured it out. And now you're just trying to cover it up, which is, if the monkeys, a few monkeys figured out if you wash the potatoes off that had sand on them in the water, they were easier to eat. You didn't have to eat sand. And after, roughly 100 monkeys, give or take, all of a sudden, all the monkeys in that area knew how to do that instinctively, including monkeys in other islands that were water. There was no way those other monkeys could have seen these monkeys seeing it doing it. To your point, that's a software thing right there, that's a beneficial update. That is a hot fix, which is, which had to have been proved. It's like, oh, monkeys got a beneficial thing from washing the sand off. Hey, you know what? All the monkeys should do that. And all of a sudden, all of them. Rats,
well,
the maze. Sorry,
Rupert Sheldrake sort of uses that for his morphic resonance, and he basically talks of it like the Akashic records, or basically all the way back to Adam. Mankind has had this sense of knowing and learning together as a species, and then all species.
Right. Oh yeah. Why wouldn't
the
you?
Mandela effect is something that's in a real similar vein as well, right? You familiar with that?
The Mandela effect? I always heard it was the Mandela effect. See what I did there?
It changed.
Oh yeah, the Mandela effect, or the Mandela effect. Yeah, absolutely. No, the Mandela effect has been intriguing for me for a long time. Unfortunately, because and again, that's built into, the problem with it is since we can't record human thought, we'll never be able to prove it one way or the other. And I think that's by design. So I think that's sort of a bleed in, like a leftover thing to make the world more interesting and mysterious. Do I think it's absolutely real? Yeah, you bet I do. My favorite is, and you know this one very well, would be the braces on the girl in James Bond. Which is it's like, look, that one, I'm a big fan of good writing, and that girl was put into that movie because she had braces. That's why she interacted with the villain who had this giant metal grill of a mouth. That's why they liked each other. That's why they became boyfriend, girlfriend. And that's why he screwed everything up. By the way, the movie, it was James Bond's Moonraker. And that's how that whole thing happened. And now when you watch it, she doesn't have braces. And it's like, what are you talking about? That's the whole reason they came together. That is the plot point. It's a major plot point in that movie. And yet the movie still runs. It's like, oh no, he just likes this little blonde girl for some reason because she smiled at him. Nope, nope,
And,
nope.
and so you're going to know it was Philip K. Dick. So in the 70s, this guy wrote all this stuff. You know him, obviously.
Yeah, yep.
He wrote all this stuff, and he said we're in. So we used to use the word simulation, but we don't anymore because it means that something's not real. A virtual reality like meta. So he said we're in this reality here, and he said when people are going to start to realize it is when it starts glitching out. And he wrote Total Recall, Minority Report. He wrote a number of really good movies that were way ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time, absolutely. And I have a hard time because I'm a big believer in NPCs, right? Because look, you need them in every game we've ever made for the last 20 something years. You populate the entire world with NPCs first, and a lot of them, and then you introduce a few players. You know, the player ratio of players to NPC is highly stacked in the NPC area, depending on what game you're looking at. You know, like GTA or Warcraft or something like that. And so as far as the glitching out, I've watched people, especially when I'm talking, you know, we're talking about flat Earth and stuff like that, where I've talked to people and you could watch it happen. I almost, you know, I half expect them to, you know, like, you know, cock their head and get all twitchy and, you know, fall down. But what seems to happen is they just freeze for a second or two and then go off to another topic and almost forget that you asked them the tough question to begin with. And it's like, and I see this over and over and over again. It's like, okay, well, so the glitches you're talking about, if a glitch happened, I'm wondering if the NPCs would even notice. We'd notice, sure, and we'd point it out. I think it happens all the time, and we point it out. But the most of the people that are walking around this world don't seem to notice, or even if it's pointed out, they can't see it. Right? We could point right at it, and they'd be staring and be like, do you want to get a sandwich? Yeah, and it's like, wait, what's happening here? You know,
the scriptures speak of those that have eyes that cannot see and those that have ears that cannot hear.
There you go.
Any speculation on what the ratio might be in Earth right now?
A lot. I mean, if you asked me 30 years ago, I'd be like, I don't really know. But now that I'm older, I would say 90%, and that's being conservative. To where. Do you remember the movie? So many great media references. You remember the movie the Adjustment Bureau, for example, where they had that book where, you know, people would cross paths, and, you know, the inflection points of how, where their paths would change. And I almost think that, again, like art imitates life and life imitates art. I think the ratio is so high because that's just how the system supports itself. You need all, you know, the high ratio of NPCs to keep everything moving. There's an old saying called it's quick. It says conformity builds empires, but creativity builds worlds. And I came up with the second part. But the conformity builds empires. Yeah, you need most of the people to keep the machine running. To your point, Ronnie, if there was a glitch in the Matrix and a whole bunch of people saw it, you know, the potential for chaos would be there, and a lot of things might break down. And so, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, an interesting point that you bring up here, and I'll throw it to Jason. I know I'm doing all the talking. Like I said, this has been a decade to finally get Mark from an undisclosed location here somewhere near Seattle to join us. So what happened was there's a bunch of people on Twitter who were all, you know, social media influencers, and they tried to ask Grok, you know, how do you wake up? How do you break out of a spell, or how do you wake up something like an NPC? And the answer was quite simple. It basically told them is that you find an inconsistency or a glitch in reality, and then you keep pointing at it. And so the first thing that I ever experienced myself, and when we get into the tabs that Jason has prepared for tonight to show you all just some, again, there is so much more that we could get into in the future if Strange World team or anybody else out there that's connected with Mark or us that wants to talk more about this, we would love to do an even deeper dive. But so the glitch that I discovered, so back in 2015, 2016, I discovered that there were clouds in front of and behind the sun and the moon. Have you witnessed this?
Not personally, but I've seen the videos, and they don't look fake. So whatever's happening optically, yeah, you'd think that would get a lot more attention, but it doesn't. Sorry, go ahead.
So you've seen it with your own eyes. I guarantee it, Mark. Especially living where you live, you've seen probably a lot of beautiful sunsets. And if you're on an island, probably sunrises too.
Well, no, because east is it's on the mountains, but that's okay.
Oh, that makes it harder.
I get west. The water's to the west, but that's okay.
The sunsets are the best, right?
Yeah.
So I guarantee you've seen them. And so when I found that glitch out, I started pointing it out, and this is before I even knew that I was in a virtual reality. And this was when I started to question whether or not I was on a spinning space ball. Like, I was so deep, I was into quantum mechanics and like the double slit experiment and all these things. And I went as far as I possibly could. I was just like a super nerd. I wanted to know everything. They had all like the Morgan Friedman space shows. I watched the Discovery Channel, the History Channel. I knew like everything I could find. And it always left me wanting more. It was always like they were just getting me close enough to finding some truth. And then they would just leave me really upset. And it was when I met Jason, and I had already figured out that I had filmed, and I pointed out, hey, wait a minute, something's going on. There's clouds in front of and behind the sun and the moon. And that's when I started working with Jason here on YouTube. And he asked me, have you ever thought of maybe that you were in a virtual reality? And so my question to you, and then I'll ask the same question to Jason. So what was it? So you were into video games, but like, when was like, do you have that moment that you realized that you were in a virtual reality?
Yeah, the big moment for me wasn't the double slit experiment, although that made me think for a long, long time, because the double slit experiment has been around in one form or another for a long time. I mean, it predates computers by a long shot. If you guys want to remember, the original one was done with like ping pong balls, and then they just made it smaller and smaller. But the one that got me was and you look up on Wiki, it's neuroscience and free will. And that was another one of those weird experiments that the scientists came up with, just because what scientists do, right? It's like, hey, let's hook up some electrodes to a guy's head and have him hit numbers on a computer, 1 through 9, I think. And what they did was they said there's a little timer up in the corner, there's seconds and tenths of seconds. And they said, okay, we're going to measure the, when you choose the number and everything, but we want you to make a mental note of when you made the decision, if there was any sort of lag before you hit the number, right? So it's like, pick a number between 1 and 9, and you say 6, right? And you hit that number, right? But you don't have to say it out loud. And it was almost instantaneous, right? What was interesting about that was when the person chose it, the computer wasn't sophisticated enough to know exactly what number you chose, only that you had already committed to choosing the number and you were going to hit it on the screen. But the thing was, the computer knew 8 seconds before you did it. And that goes into a whole nother thing, which is predestination, which is you may not be even living in a interactive virtual reality. You may be living in a pre-record virtual reality where, and bear with me for a second, where you lay out everything ahead of time, therefore there's no chance, and then there's a memory block put in place. Because the thing about interactive stuff, if you play online games with anybody, is you don't know what's going to happen, and people bail, and there's always sorts of bad things that happen, and people quit, and you don't get the experience that you want. The problem is memory. So I'll give you a quick example. We've all seen it. There are kids now that make money on YouTube that all they do is they record their video games and then they play them. They say, here's me going through Minecraft for 3 hours. You can watch. And when people watch this video, they get almost the exact same experience as if they were playing it themselves or watching it live. The difference is they're not watching it live. There's not servers. There's nothing interactive happening there. You're just watching a little MP4 file. You're just watching a little movie file. So what I'm saying is that neuroscience versus free will hints, and science hates this because they hate predestination, is that some point you picked the route that you were going through your life right now, and then you set up a memory block in front of it to where it makes it seem completely novel. Like, it's like, oh, wow, this is random, and wow, what an amazing surprise. It's like waking up on a roller coaster, basically.
Yeah.
Where you don't know that you were there. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one of my statements that I share on one of my spinning window panes is that the brain makes decisions up to 10 seconds before you're even aware of it, and that we here on Team Yahawashai claim that it's evidence that the physical is an illusion and you actually live in a virtual reality. And you sort of touched on, I'm going to throw it to Jason. So the speculation of, are we in a replay? Jason, so can you talk on that at all?
We've talked about it a bunch. So, we're Christians and we go to the Bible and we try to get as much out of it as we can. And there's definitely some things talked about in the Bible that seem like things were forecast to go a certain way. And there's guardrails in place.
Right.
And, you probably have independent choice along the way, but all in all, so a lot of people call it the singularity. And, so there's multiple singularities coming, because there's the AI tech revolution that says that there's a AI singularity coming. Biblically, everything comes to like one gate where, certain people are going to make it through the gate and other people aren't going to make it through the gate.
Sure.
The technocrats, they want to turn the human body into a machine, and that's supposed to be a singularity. So there's something to the predestination talk, even though we all seem to be able to make choices like at the moment within a certain group of parameters.
Right. In fact, I'll use a line from The Matrix, which was when he was talking to the Oracle in the park during the second one, and she wanted him to make the choice whether or not to save Trinity. He goes, I can't make that choice. She goes, no. She goes, you don't understand. You've already made it. You're here to understand why you made it. And people just really miss that one. It's like, no. I mean, that is, when it comes to predestination or, running through a replay or a pre-record or something like that, you may get like a lot of games, right? You get fork in the road, you have to choose left or right. And, but I think the template is set up for you, like you mentioned, with the guardrails in place. There's only so far you can go one way or the other. The path is never, you can't go so far off into the weeds, you run into the barrier type thing.
Yeah. One other point to add in, George Smoot. So I brought up Rupert Sheldrake with Morphic Resonance. Now, George Smoot was a university professor who was going around explaining to everybody that they were in a simulation or a virtual reality, and that they were all going to be deniers. And so basically what he was explaining was that basically if you understood the way that a programmer could program something, once you have the specific code written and you hit execute, is it predestiny that you already know that the characters within that game are going to fulfill what the code is? It's just the way that it's written.
Absolutely. Which is one of the reasons I did not go deep into code, because I love games. And when you really get into the code of games, you take the magic out of it. You are now looking behind the curtain, and I think you lose the mystery. Part of the magic of games is you don't know what's going to happen. You find your way through it. There's a great line. It was a mythical argument between Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking, which was Albert Einstein said that God doesn't play dice. And Stephen Hawking comes like, God does play dice. I'm not going to imitate his voice box or anything. But I understood it completely differently, which was Einstein, doesn't matter if you agreed with his math, or if you thought he was a fraud, or if you thought he was part of the system that was trying to get people to, believe in space and space-time and all that. He was incredibly quotable. And I mean, there's a whole greeting card section with just Einstein quotes, which is really interesting for a physicist. And he said, what he was saying is that God wrote dice, therefore he cannot play dice, because he knows every aspect of dice. He wrote the dice program. And if you wrote every aspect of the dice program, you know the throw, as soon as you throw it, before you throw it, what it's going to end up being. So I think what he was kind of hinting at was, God would love to play dice, and the only way that he could even do it is if he forgot how he wrote it. Put a block in place and be like, hey, I'd love to go down and play some dice. Maybe not literal dice, but you know what I'm saying there. And then he would be surprised, because again, if you're a heavy coder, what you were just saying there, what the character is going to do ahead of time. Because that's how it's written. The machines only do what you tell them to. Sorry, one more thing real quick, which is, because I don't want to lose this, which is AI. AI, I hate the fact that people keep tying it to like Skynet and all that other crap, because like the whole self-aware thing. If you guys want to watch an interesting movie that predates Skynet and Terminator by a bunch of years, look up Colossus, the Forbin Project, where the United States in 1970 built a supercomputer and then handed over basically everything to it, and it became self-aware. But no one can explain it. AI, all AI is now, and all it's going to be moving forward, although it is moving toward the singularity, is autocomplete. That's all it is. We grew up watching autocomplete develop from just a word or two to where now it can basically fill in, anticipating based on averages what you're going to type in next. And it's doing it better and better and better and better, to where eventually, you start 2 words. It's like, oh yeah, based on what you're used to, I can fill in a whole paragraph of what you're probably going to say. And that's when it can fool people into thinking it's self-aware. One more thing, the grandfather of computers, for those who don't know in chat room, is Alan Turing. They made a movie about him called The Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, he was the guy that built the first computer to defeat the German Enigma machine in World War II. And this was back in 1950, after the war was over. He was the one that came up with the Turing test. Before there was the Turing test, after he died, it was called The Imitation Game. And he was saying that at the rate we're going with computers, sooner or later, what they will do is they won't become self-aware, but they can be able to imitate us so well that you won't know any different. And that I find fascinating. There's different movies. The Machine with Toby Stevens is really good along those lines. But that's what they're kind of leaning towards. Self-aware, no. My vacuum cleaner over there in the corner, my robot vacuum cleaner, it's not going to walk up to me one day and start questioning the meaning of life. That's not going to happen. But at the same time, we've seen chat rooms, auto tech support chat rooms, where it's like, oh, hey, can I help you with blah, blah, blah? And like the first 8 responses, you don't know if it's a person or not until finally it transfers you over, and that gets better all the time. So
to interject, to continue on, Jason and I theorize, we talk about this. We talk about sentience and its ability to be on and offs, our thought processes. And so the AI actually, we theorize, could actually become sentient as much as we are. It's such a crazy thought.
As much as thank you, by the way, for saying that, as much as we are. And I don't get a chance to say this that often. In the movies, self-aware computers only happen because of one of 3 things. Either lightning struck the circuit board, radioactive goo was poured onto the circuit board, or some sort of chemical, or a ghost or alien inhabited the circuit board. That's it. Or you just ignore it entirely, like Skynet. It said, oh, Skynet became self-aware. How did that happen? Doesn't matter. We're moving forward. Drop the bombs. And that's how that whole movie franchise moved forward. But to your point, yes, if it gets to a point, that point you start looking back at yourself. The reason why we have such a hard time even conceiving self-aware is because you're trying to define your own soul. It's like, okay, how are you alive, right? What makes you exist? What makes you a unique entity right now? And okay, fine. You may say you're a philosopher and you break all that down, fine. Now write it in computer code and try to put it into a machine. It can't be done. We can't even start the flow chart for that. I mean, the closest we can get is an imitation, but like if you had the time and the energy and you wrote enough code that could cover enough responses, yes, you could literally make us. The question is, then, are we self-aware or are we not?
Yeah, the transcendence question, right?
Yeah.
How do you prove that you're aware, right?
Yeah, I think, therefore I am. It's not what it used to be. Not anymore.
My guess is it's sort of similar to what, like the metaverse, thing that Facebook's creating, except for the fact that, right now we don't have the ability to have all the touch, the haptic feedback, the smell, the taste, stuff like that. Yep. But if there was a way to experience all that, I feel like what we're all experiencing here on Earth is being in a virtual reality where we're experiencing the world in a virtual world, but it's through the 5 senses, and And so it comes down to communication. It's all data, and yeah, then you start thinking about what's the purpose of life and all that kind of stuff. It really seems to be about communication with other people.
It is. It certainly seems like that to me. The interactive quality of this world is, it's broad and deep, and it seems to have been expanding at almost, I don't want to use too many expensive words, but at a geometric rate, to where now we are, again, that's kind of what they were talking about with Skynet. Skynet just kept getting smarter and smarter. It's like, yeah, not if they're not coding, they're not. But the communication layers that we, especially with social media has changed the landscape so much that the interactivity and the communication levels between people, even though we've lost a lot, the face-to-face and the intimacy, of meeting people in person, that's kind of been thrown out the window to this hyper two-dimensional thinking that people are, that especially, if you're under 30, that people are texting each other. They're living on their phones constantly, and they can't break free. I'm so grateful that I got to grow up during the era that I did, because I think a lot has been lost in translation. I mean, think about when texting came out, I knew we were in trouble. Back before we was even texting on phones, you could text each other in the office, and I would watch
the pager first, right?
There you go. The pagerverse. And then when you had instant messaging inside different systems in the office, like, look, you guys are sitting right across from each other in cubicles. Why aren't you just talking instead of doing this stupid thing? And then when the official texting, when it took off in all the high schools, they had to build this massive emoji system to fill in the gaps, because there was a lot of stuff being lost in translation. And to where it's weird, but it goes into that human question. It's a philosophical question, which is, what is a human being's most common state? Is it fear or is it laziness? Mm-hmm. And it's like, because as you know, texting, even though it is somewhat of an efficient, it's fast, you don't have to pick the phone and dial and have that awkward moment. At the same time, you are losing a lot in the translation, and there are it removes the difficult part. Come on, you've seen it, right? You've read about stuff where people start the relationships and break up the relationships over text, because it is easier emotionally. Hey,
it's like a safety wall.
Yeah, you would like to go on a date? LOL. Always have to insert LO at the end. It's like, ha ha ha, in case you say something cruel and harsh. Yeah. And it's the days of sweating, shuffling your feet. It's like, so you want to go to prom?
Holding the door open. So here, I'll segue. This is a perfect segue. So I know, Jason, we'll hear from both of you guys to what your remembrance is. So I remember when what was it, 91, 92, when the internet was a home thing. It became less than net school. And so I got on the internet, and I remember I went and I started doing chats. And I remember the first thing that I learned how to do was how to send a woman a rose. You would type in, it was like, was it like a comma, or there was an arrow, a back, and then you would hit, remember all that? Now,
Yep. The special key macro, and people would cut and paste them in. Yeah,
that's right. And you could do different things: smiley, sad, rose. You could do like all the emojis, and you had to actually code them.
Yeah.
And so I went on there. I was trying to get like guitar tablature, so I didn't have to pay for the books. And I was right into Napster. Jason, what was, or Mark too? Do you remember what was like the first thing that you did when the internet came out?
When the internet first came out,
did you have it with dial-up, right?
Well, yeah, definitely dial-up. Oh God, were those the days? Yeah, yeah, it was, the handshake, the brutal handshake from I was there for the 2448.
Someone calls and you go offline, you just lose it.
Oh yeah. And I was, again, because I'm older, I was one of the first America Online forum consultants. I was there when America Online, when you had to pay, kind of like cell phones back in the day, when you paid these monthly charges that were just ridiculous, just for talking. And America Online was charging, they didn't have a flat fee, and people were spending $200-300 a month on America Online when it first came out. I mean, there was CompuServe and Prodigy, but America Online, as you know, they were freaking everywhere. And that was an amazing internet introduction, because we still did stuff. I mean, social media didn't even exist. We were doing dial-up. It was very limited. We still did stuff with friends. But if you weren't, you crank up the machine. It's like, oh, hey, this cool little novel thing that you could kind of do some fun stuff. But the internet itself was really, really limited. I mean, the running jokes about you could finish the internet. You could. There was only so many sites. In fact, let me segue into this really quick. That's how I first, by complete accident, 15 years before I made the clues, ran into something that still to this day resonates with me, which was I ran a tech support team at a software company in Boulder, Colorado, and I wanted to put different pictures of the globe on everybody's monitor, all the tech support team's monitor. And I remember going in and doing a simple Boolean string and saying, oh yeah, Earth from space, Earth space pictures, blah, blah, blah. And it was just and you click on images, and it was just rows and rows and rows of the blue marble shot from Apollo 17, and only the blue marble shot from Apollo 17. There were no other pictures in 2000. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, NASA, you suck. It's like, you're terrible at this internet thing, because you only have one picture out there. Didn't even occur to me that there was only one picture out there of the Earth from space in 2000, or even 2001, 2002. And again, just to remind people, it was the first blue marble shot of space was taken in 1972 from Apollo 17 on their way home. It was the only shot they ever took from any Apollo 9 through 7. None of them didn't take any. And the second blue marble shot was not taken from 1972 until the summer of 2015, when we started cranking up. And it was not lost on me, and so I had this weird memory flashback when I first got it. I finally got into it in 2015. It's like, that's why that whole piece. Again, we miss the things that are right in front of our face sometimes, and that was one of them. Watching that again, if I could have only gone back in time and filmed that with a crappy camcorder and showed people, it's like, that's all you got.
I think I would have invested in Microsoft and Apple. Now, Jason, you have a different story of so we're all about truth and truthers. And so when you got on the internet, Jason, why don't you give us a quick history? What did you do?
Yeah, well, I was an early computer guy. So I was on Windows 3.1. I was into DOS. I had DOS video games, all that kind of stuff. I was in rural Wisconsin, so I just had slow dial-up. It wasn't until mid 90s when I had my first cable high-speed modem.
Yep.
And basically, I had grown up Jehovah's Witness. One of the first things I did is I started researching them and, found out that they're a Freemason cult and all this other stuff. And that's what got me to initially just leave the Bible, leave Christianity, become an atheist, all that kind of stuff. The internet was right there to just spoon feed me. We came from a big bang and there is no creator and all that kind of stuff. That was really the first thing that the internet got me with.
Sure.
Anti-Jehovah Witness guy. And then we learned out that the name Jehovah was a pen name from Isaac Newton, and he was the furthest away from the truth that you could be. So that's quite interesting. I guess 10 more minutes and then we'll do a song break and then maybe get into showing Mark some virtual reality. So what a lot of people do is in the virtual reality conversation, people will talk about it, but they won't actually show evidence for it, which is interesting, right? I'm sure you've seen.
Well, there's Elon. Elon says, well, he uses the word simulation, but virtual reality, I think, is what he means. Neil deGrasse Tyson says simulation, but I think he's referring to virtual reality because it seems a little crazy to think that we're just an algorithm with nothing else, no interaction. So
right.
Big names are into it, right? I mean, it's a lot of times if you look at Drudge headlines or something like that, something pops up, oh, more proof that we're in a virtual reality.
Right.
It seems like it's sort of a mainstream topic.
And then what they do is they railroad it into being like some snot-nosed kid in the future of some nasty reality creates this word as ant farm, right? That's what they try to do to it.
And they don't. Again, I loved your Inception clip at the beginning of this because that was one of the pinnacles of, well, definitely Christopher Nolan's career before he went off the freaking rails with Tenet. But he, in that movie, again, it's lost on people that they consider it like a dream within a dream, because it easily could have been a virtual reality inside a virtual reality, easily been that. And it's frustrating for me sometimes to watch the general public, because again, we've been running virtual reality movies off and on now for 20, quarter century. And depending on your train of thinking here, either they're just willfully ignoring it, or doing the NPC thing, or they just don't get it, or they just don't have the, I don't want to believe they don't have the mental capacity to fully absorb it, but maybe that's how the world was built, and that there's only certain people that can get it.
That's a great point.
I got a little bit of a personal experience. We're on a job site now with a great customer. Ron had mentioned that we do podcasts and stuff, and then we said that we were going to be leaving a little bit earlier today because we're having a podcast with you.
Yeah.
And so at first we weren't quite sure if we're going to say, what it is that we talk about. And I think Ron said something like, it's conspiracy. And then the first thing she asked, is it about flat Earth? And she did. That's the first thing she asked. And so the nice thing is we get to say, we think Earth's a virtual reality. So we don't even, it just becomes obvious. Oh yeah, virtual reality. Those are built on a flat plane, right? So the question I had for her was, have you played video games? And yes, and her style of video game was like open sandbox
RPG
type games.
Sure.
And so that when somebody has like a gaming background, and you can take a person into, okay, what happened when you went across the screen? Oh yeah, it came out on the other side over here.
Right.
Now all of a sudden things are much more relatable. We have like an analogy that we can share with somebody, something to talk about. And then after the break, there's other evidences as far as just how local the sun is, that it starts to give you some pretty solid clues.
Yeah.
That we're in a virtual reality.
Yeah. And that's why I do believe that the flat Earth clues, I think Mark, you might have the top viewed, virtual / flat Earth reality content of all time. I think it's because of your video game standpoint. Now, we were huge fans of it, and we always wanted to hear more. And that's why I guess this is a decade in the makings to having you on. And it's really great. I'm thinking that everybody's having a good time in the chat. And after we're going to do a song break, and then we're going to go through some evidences. If anybody has, friendly questions, or if they want anything to participate, we're more than happy to read. I don't know if you've got a time limit. I know you're on the West Coast.
Oh, no. I'll make time for you. It's okay. We'll
we don't have any plans. We're just excited. And go ahead.
If people have questions in the chat, like, would you?
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to. Whatever you want to, given the month I've had, whatever you want to ask, you guys can ask anything you want. I will answer it.
That's great.
All right,
Jason, go ahead.
Let's take a quick song break. Then when we come back, we'll sort of get into some of the tabs we've got for tonight.
Okay.
I wanna be the thought that ruins your day. I wanna be the reason no one calls you to hang. I know it's petty, but can you really blame me? Blame me? Heard my name floating around. Somebody seems to have lots of time to kill. Guess you still don't have a job. Do you just find it unbearable to keep to yourself? I don't think you get how low I'm willing to get. I wanna be the thought that ruins your day. I wanna be the reason no one calls you to hang. I know it's petty, but can you really blame me? Blame me? your day. I wanna be the reason no one calls you to hang. I know it's pain, but can you really blame me? I wanna be what keeps you sleepless at night. I wanna be the first and last thing on your mind. I know it's pain, but can you really blame me? I don't hold grudges, but you sure made a scene. I wouldn't think of you if you didn't say anything. Was that your intention? Well, you've got my attention. I wanna be the thought that ruins your day. I wanna be the reason no one calls you to hang. I know it's pain, but can you really blame me? I wanna be what keeps you sleepless at night. I wanna be the first and last thing on your mind. I know it's pain, but can you really blame me?
And we are back. Obviously, that was brand new music. That was Matt Segram and their brand new song, Petty. And what we're also looking at here is a Rumble channel. If you're tuning in tonight, thank you so much for tuning in. This is another part of our Team Yahawashai group. This is the RJ Shine. This is my channel. I have a podcast that I do each and every week on Sunday called Rise and Grind. What we do on this podcast is we do spirituality. We talk about how we're healing ourselves. We talk about exercise, dieting, and all kinds of amazing ways that we can improve our avatar. And most importantly, each and every week we bring at least minimum of 9 brand new songs. We do this to take the power back. Not only do we take the power back from the bad science, we also take the power back from the really bad music industry. And again, we really hope that you not only tune in, but you also look in the description box of this video and head on over to Rumble and join us. You can either join us live on Sundays. As you can see, Jason has it on the screen here. There is a lot of content here. I cover all of the news, right? And I try to do it with some humor and some light, and we go deep. I was booted off of YouTube. I had a channel of over 6,000 subscribers, over 1,000 videos I had amassed, and they kicked me off. So I'm over here, and if you'd like to hear more, just like that last song, more brand new music, please tune into the Rumble Rise and Grind channel. I'd really like to see you over there.
So Mark, we would love to show you some of the things that we think are sort of big slam dunks for being in a virtual reality.
Sure, do it.
How does that sound?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
All right. So clouds behind the sun is, in our opinion, it's something that everybody can test themselves. If you get a zoom camera that you've got like 50x or more, you can zoom into a position where you get some pretty incredible stuff. So this was one of the ones that I thought was the greatest. It was 7 years ago, channel on YouTube, Listexic, had recorded this, and I'm sure you've seen lots of people. Lots of people have reposted this one, right?
Yeah. And this happens in virtual simulations all the time, because we can't put a sun 93 million miles away, and every once in a while the programmers will be like, it'll be fine, it'll be good, don't worry about it. Yeah, well, until you had a digital zoom camera, you weren't going to be able to see this close enough with your eyes to be able to be sure, hey, look, there's clouds behind it. And again, I know what the excuse will be from, the mainstream science people, but it doesn't matter what the excuse is. This is what it looks like. And if it looks like this, you're going to have a hard time convincing a whole bunch of people, because our society is visual. So no, it's great. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. So there's the clouds behind the sun like that. So the very first thing, I bought a P900, like right when they came out. Eric DeBay talked about it, and he was showing like the stars and stuff, and I wanted to see what was going on myself. So
he never filmed anything though.
I got it, and so the sun rising out of the water,
right?
I mean, have you setting into the water when it
lift off?
Yeah,
you see like this energy, like right right there, right?
Yeah, the only, again, the limit, I can't stress this enough to people. The only reason that we can't see almost infinitely far, which we can do in video games, we actually have to add an artificial atmosphere, is because what we're breathing in now has a thickness to it, and it will distort stuff over distance. And yeah, the sun is not setting, it's just going away. That's all it's doing. That is what we do when we build them up. We had to imitate what we were doing here. And when we started to imitate it, when we started to build our own, hey, look what we found out. We can get away with it. The sun isn't 100. We don't build suns that are hundreds of thousands of miles wide, 93 million miles away. It's super close and really, really small. And you don't know the difference. So if you don't know the difference there, who's to say that when you walk outside, what you're looking at?
Yeah, so the going away is something where we've been talking about for a while, that there's only 3 models of reality that can explain day and night. And if you've got another option to add to the list, absolutely, I'm gonna have to.
I notice you got the 3-body problem happening there with the the heliocentrism. Again, guys don't understand. We won't explain it here. Look up the 3-body problem. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem.
No one wants to talk about it. Our best computers can't solve it. So,
but you might not have heard of basically what we're going to show you here. Jason's going to be explaining to you. So we have a bit of a different way to view reality, and that's why we're really excited to have you on. So Jason's got the 3 explanations. Now, you could have someone say, "Oh, what about concave or upward rising Earth?" Well, we're taking the 3 most popular versions of the way that people explain sunrise and sunset.
sure.
Well, there's only certain ways that motion can be expressed. I mean, we've got, like, was it 6 basic vectors? You have your X, Y, Z axis. So things can only be rotating within those 3 planes. And so the 3 options that we've been able to figure out is that, spinning balls was one. The second one was the horizontal circles around a single pole, right?
Yep.
And then the third option for what could be day and night is that the rotation of the sun is equidistant around the observer.
Sure.
And that it's actually rising from the plane and setting into the plane in a person's circle of sight.
Sure. I'm not against that at all. Again, it's what we do when we have to build it out. When we do our versions here using the skybox system. Absolutely.
And it's basically tilted based on your latitude. We're going to get more into that when we get into the further down the table.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is a video that I took that, it's just got some sped up footage where you can see the sun rises full size, and it rises up into, a cloud layer, and then it comes through that cloud layer, like right there, like in just those clouds were just, I don't know, 10 miles away from me, 5 miles away from me.
Yep.
Right. And that is where it rose, and all the lighting is sourced right to that location. And then you've got the people that are traveling in airplanes at sunrise and sunset that are getting this type of footage where the sun is in front of the horizon,
right,
in a lot of situations. And you'll see, like in this type of footage, that so you got the sun going down,
right,
and then once it gets low enough, you'll start seeing that the illumination is underneath the clouds here.
right. Yep.
And so this is one of the things where we consider this VR proof, that because the sun's not above the clouds moving away from a person,
right,
and it's not 93 million miles away, it's literally underneath these clouds.
Yeah, if we drill in on that point here with Mark, what we're showing here is so we're in a plane and the sun is way below the plane, and it's actually, the sunlight is below these clouds.
Yeah,
that's not possible in a heliocentric reality.
Yeah, I haven't seen this footage, by the way. That's gorgeous.
Isn't that nice?
Got that whole sky lava type thing.
And we're just touching on some of these things. Like I said, we hope to intrigue your audience to maybe go even further and deeper and more interesting than tonight.
Yeah, so here's a airplane flight where it's cool footage. I mean, this is Mount Fuji, and I mean, this is great, and this is unrelated to the flat Earth conversation here. It's just somebody flying around, and then when they film over here, whoa, there's a
What's that?
moon in front of the horizon
Oh,
below
wow.
the airplane.
Didn't notice that.
So the moon as well below.
Yeah.
And these aren't shills. These are just regular people filming, right?
Right. Right.
This
Yeah.
is-
There's so
People-
much.
I love the fact, and again, it's not just the things you see, but the things you don't see. The fact that there's 6 billion smartphones out there, and I don't want to interrupt too much, but I want to mention that isn't it interesting, by the way, that we don't have any footage of a meteor going from sky to ground anywhere. 6
great point.
billion smartphones, and nobody has recorded that. Come on.
But I mean, if you put on night vision glasses and you look up in the sky, it's pretty incredible.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
that blows my mind. But we don't. You're right. And there's never been an actual meteor that's been filmed crashing into the Earth or the moon ever.
Or the water. Yeah.
Or the
I mean,
water.
Like
Good
it's
point,
like,
yeah.
come on, it's why not, a cruise boat? What, somebody by accident when they're filming, it's like, what's that? Splash. Nope. Nothing.
Well said. So this is Matt Long's footage, or is this Wolfie?
This is Matt Long's footage.
Some great
it
footage
says-
that he
it says-
got.
Have you seen this one, Mark?
Maybe keep running it.
He was on his way to Toronto, actually, on his way to Alberta.
Somehow
Yeah,
those
shout
out
connections
to Matt
always
Long.
seem to come up.
In the background, and the sun is going to start rising through that thick layer of clouds right
The sun is going to start rising
Yeah.
through that thick
The horizon's
layer
behind
of
it.
clouds. I cannot tell you how many shills have come in saying, "Oh, your evidence that the clouds are behind the sun. Can you show us the sun rising through a thick layer of clouds, or
And-
a thick layer of clouds behind the sun?"
Well, and I've got a comment here again because
I don't know
so
how much
this
you want
is
to play it.
from the video, but yeah, so his footage just really clearly showed the sun in front of the horizon and rising through the clouds.
Not on a. It couldn't work on a heliocentric model at all.
And then Wolfie 6020, he had a video a while ago where not only does he show the sun is below the airplane, so he's got shadows being cast up in the cockpit because the sun's below, but he's also got the moon below the airplane as well, and
So, yeah.
he points that out as well.
So when you have the full moon rise, it happens at sunset. So he was in the perfect spot. And here's Wolfie actually thinking that he's debunking flat Earth, and what he's actually doing is destroying heliocentrism. Right? This is an impossibility. To have something that was 250,000 miles away and 90 million miles away at the same time, both below the plane and the horizon behind both of the luminaries, is impossible.
There you go.
So with the technology that we have, this is just a real simple clouds behind the sun footage that I took myself, but with filters. So things like the emboss filter, things like that, it'll show you what textures are in front of and what textures are behind.
There you go. That's good.
And so when I'll end up sort of like split screening this, where you'll be able to see the one half with filters on, the other half without the filters,
Cool.
and it makes it really obvious when the clouds are in front of and behind.
Sure. Well done. I've never seen the texture thing like that. That's neat.
Yeah, the emboss filter really does show you the 3D perception into the shot. You can
Yeah.
clearly see the disk of the sun.
Yeah.
And then basically you can clearly see clouds behind it and in front of it, right?
Sure.
Because it was McWest that came out and tried to debunk this, and then he had to
Right.
disable the comments because he got debunked in his own comments he was putting a film strip in front of a light bulb.
Yeah.
And showing that, the light is so bright that it's blasting out the film, so it appears that the sunlight is in front of it. But the problem here is that you have the clouds in front of and behind, and not only that, he was faking it with using Did he have Jason? He had like a thing put in the corner of and he had to remove his comments. So he was right away trying to debunk Jason, and it was Soundly and Sly Sparkane that came right after Jason.
Yeah, so there's that. Now, this is sort of a new thing that we just picked up on recently because, well, we had the blood moon last night.
Sure.
Which means we've got a partial solar eclipse coming up in 2 weeks. And partial solar eclipses, I can't wait to show you some of the pictures that they have here because, all right, so you start to get an idea.
Yeah.
With a picture like this. Oh, okay, that's a little interesting.
And the reason those get overlooked is because you can only see that with a special filter on your camera. With naked eye, it's still blinding. Even with a 90% eclipse, you can't look at it directly with your eyes without possible damage.
Yeah, and depending also on the sun's position. So about 10 to 15 degrees, you can actually, so sun gazing is quite a thing. It's pretty beautiful.
I know.
A lot of people are really into that. But you can actually make a lot of these observations with the naked eye of just the sun, but not the eclipse, obviously.
Right.
All right, so now you're starting to see a little bit of clouds in front of the sun, and you're seeing the clouds right through the eclipsed part of the sun.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this stuff right here, I was like, okay, you can literally see the uninterrupted background where the moon's supposed to be.
Right.
Right, this?
Yep.
This is some pretty neat stuff.
I like it. I've been seeing most of these shots. They're good.
You have seen them?
No, I haven't. I have not.
No, we just sort of stumbled across this recently, and we're gonna be focusing on it a lot more because I mean it's literally all over the place. Sometimes you'll get into just a string of pictures here where you see more, and then it just takes you into another group. They just keep getting better and better and better. Sure. A lot of people have shot this. So I think everybody's eyes should always be on these partial eclipses. This is an amazing proof to me. All right.
It's good.
Eclipse shadows. Are you familiar with them?
I am. I wanted to see them back in 2017. I didn't even know they existed until 2017. I started seeing pictures like, wow, do you get a chance? But yeah, explain it to people if you can. It's amazing photography.
Yeah, well, so we went to the total solar eclipse in 2017, the one in 2024, and the partial eclipse in 2023.
Yeah.
And it was the first one, 2017. We got to see them really, really good like this. And
that's when it goes through trees, right?
Yeah, trees, but it can be anything. It can be a lot of things.
You can hold your hands like this, and you can anything. So this was shared in our Telegram when we said that you were coming on as a guest. We had somebody show this. So say show this to Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, the eclipse shadows coming through this strainer pan, right?
So here, this will probably intrigue you, Mark. So I know there's a lot of people that say that we're in some sort of a holographic type reality, and that a little fragment of the holograph can be expressed through a piece of each holograph. And we don't completely agree to all of that, but what we are seeing is that the projection of the eclipse can be shot through anything, and then it does form a complete eclipse. So what you're seeing on the ground through all the holes there are eclipses everywhere. So it's basically the anti-light is showing exactly where the eclipse is. This stuff here blew my mind when I first saw this,
Yeah, it's sort of a light shadow. So I mean, shadows are always like blocking light, but this is like a light shadow.
That's wild. Absolutely wild.
It's really unreproducible. There's there'll be some shill Wikipedia type thing that'll say, yeah, that's reproducible, but
not easily. It's not. That would be tough to do. I mean, there's so many layers you're looking at there. It's gorgeous.
So eclipse shadows, huge. So here's an interesting one. This guy right here, he calls it the Discovery. He's on YouTube.
I am aware of this only recently, and it is super cool. Unfortunately, DMT and that whole thing doesn't do much for me. So, but yeah, the laser system he came up with to do it. But why I think it's absolutely 100% authentic is because every person he did it to, they all did the same thing, and that is they leaned into the image. I mean, you could probably go to it, and they were like point blank there. Everyone did that. It's like if they could crawl inside that thing, they would have.
That's great that you've seen this, Mark. So as a caveat,
do you want to tell people what it is that
what they're seeing? They're seeing freaking matrix code is what they're seeing. They're seeing a coding language in between the layers of the widened laser beam, but they can only see it when they're on hallucinogens. And it short circuits the brain to where normally it would be invisible. And every time somebody sees it, when you're in this state, you're like, holy smokes. And they try to read it. So you see these people and they're right nose to the wall trying to get closer as they can. It's like, but of course they can't read it because it's in a language that they don't know. I mean, it's freaking symbols.
And as a caveat, if you want to actually have a true spiritual connection, get sober. Get super sober. But we can learn vicariously through these subjects who've gone and done the DMT. We're in no way, we're like you, Mark. I think if you want to really have a true spiritual awakening, you need to make yourself as sober as you can. But it's fascinating how when they shine the laser here on the wall, and like Mark said, when they lean in at a certain angle, all of a sudden they can see what looks like alien type code or matrix like code written into the laser beam.
And it's in three dimensions. So the beam itself is holding, it's not like just one line of text. It's multiple lines of text, and they can see, they can read or visualize different lines depending on, fractions of an inch different and how their viewing angle. That's why they'd stay there forever if they could. They're absolutely riveted to it.
Are you going to play a clip, Jay, or no?
No, he doesn't have to. But I mean, you kind of get it from this because again, the camera doesn't pick up the code. You're never going to be able to record the code.
It's true.
Again, part of the system, how it works, the rules that you can't break is they can see it, you can't. And even if you could see it, you can't write it down because you don't know what the hell. I mean, yes, somebody's trying to write it down, but you're not going to be able to decipher it. It's brilliant. I love the fact that whoever came up with this on accident, and then it's like, what if we widen the beam, man? Yeah, I mean, because this particular type of beam you can't just buy off of Amazon. He had to rig this thing up to make it that wide because lasers don't come in that thickness. Because why would you?
Yeah. So here's another guy that says Earth's a virtual reality. He says he can prove it too. All right, so are you familiar with a model that we've shared?
Probably. Over the years, I probably gleaned it. Go ahead and hit me with it.
Well, it's just basically this Andrew Marsh site or Stellarium, or Suncalc. Every one of those programs are models that we say represents being in a virtual reality because they literally 3D model out and show the sun rising from the earth and setting into earth on a flat and stationary plane. So this is the Stereographic Virtual Reality Explained video that it's a couple years old, and I actually have a new one that's going to be coming out soon. But lots of different
sunsets below. It is important to get acquainted.
These different sunrise and sunsets, the green flash. Are you familiar with the green flash?
Only because of Pirates of the Caribbean, but yes.
Okay.
Which is odd, by the way. The green flash is a weird thing in itself. It's like, why is it green?
Yeah.
At all. And why does it
flash? Why is it
come apart from the sun like this? And
I didn't know that was a sailor's thing that's been passed down for centuries. Did not know it was a thing until, again, stupid movie.
And then actual footage of the sun rising and setting from Earth. A lot of times we see it with water, but if you've got the right vantage point, the right distance to a hill or a valley or something, being able to actually see the sun either rise from or set into Earth, where you see the trees.
Trees before, in front and behind of the sun here, everybody that's tuning in. It's coming out of the ground, the sun, literally, right here.
Cool.
It's amazing. It's just like, wow, okay, not water, so it's not being reflected off of like a mirror. No, it's literally rising up in the valley between those two tree lines right there.
So that's
Slick.
let's see here. So Ron has a whole collection here of just awesome footage.
Just
So we
virtual
can-
reality clips. So how could you film? Here's a great thing to ask you, Mark. How could you film a sun on the bottom side of an airplane?
There you go.
Like, does people understand? Like, if you think about that, it's impossible.
Several degrees below horizon.
And that's another clip of Wolfie in his shadow. But the sun being beneath the plane is just a huge virtual reality proof. And as Jason clicks through, there's a lot more. That was the sun rising up again through the clouds with the horizon beyond it. Now shadows. Go ahead, Jay. These are very, very important.
the black streaks. Yeah, I was hoping you'd get to those eventually, because that gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
So
You've seen this?
Not so
Or
much
like
the black
similar
streaks,
stuff?
but what I want people to focus in on here, Mark, is the shadow is above. It's above the plane's chemtrail.
Right.
So that would only work if the sun was below it, right?
Yeah.
The sun can't be 92 million miles away.
Sorry, I call them black streaks.
They are. These ones do look black, absolutely, but it's the shadow shining upwards on the bottom side of clouds. It's impossible in a heliocentric model.
Have you ever seen the rocket shadow streaks before the rocket even takes off?
Yeah. See, we wonder if there's some kind of light projector system,
blue beam
going on with something. That's like a deep topic.
Yeah, that one, that part again, people completely gloss over because you don't know what to do with it. It's like, what does this mean?
What kind of magic show are they really doing?
Yeah.
But the shadow one is really interesting.
Yeah.
The crepuscular rays. I mean, the rays are always pointing to the sun.
Yep.
And very, very close.
And how we did, again, how we do that in our simulations is it's not a trick. It's just like, okay, how do we do corpuscular rays, right? Well, the light source is really, really small, but since it's unique to the observer, you can't be in two heads at the same time. So let's just make it unique to the observer. So your corpuscular rays look identical to that guy's, but even though he's 100 miles away, it's like, well, it doesn't work like that. Well, sure it does, because you're not him. You only see it through your eyes.
Just like the way that the sun reflects off of the waterline to me at the beach and to you at the beach.
Yep.
And then and so someone could have a sunrise and their sky is orange. Someone has a blue sky. Someone has a sun setting. And it's all in the same reality. So here we've got objects flying in and interacting with the sun. So, and what people generally will say, Mark, is like, okay, so are those people melting? They'll say stupid stuff like that. But what we teach, that's what they say. But what we teach is everything is equidistant to the observer. So we see something at the distance. So the sun is probably 10 miles, depending on the higher we go in altitude, the further away the sun is. It's the exact same thing as a rainbow. No one's ever able to get to the end of a rainbow because it continues to move with you, equidistantly locked. So the person in the plane sees the sun depending on their altitude. So it's probably 15 miles away from them. But what's amazing is that we see this glitch in the virtual reality is that we can actually see the plane flying through the sun.
Right.
Literally. And you can see the drag and
that's a good word for it. That's a glitch. It shouldn't happen that way. And since 99.99% of the people don't notice it, you get away with it. But yes,
they have.
Absolutely a glitch. No question.
There's more clips of the sun rising up, like with trees behind and in front of it, literally coming up from the ground, literally. And then someone will say, well, how come those trees aren't catching on fire, right? When we try to explain, okay, you're in a virtual reality, right?
Yeah.
When you get to those trees, they see the sun 10 miles from them. When you get to that spot, it sees the sun 10 miles from them, and it's coded that way.
In software, when we build a virtual world, it's called instancing, which is you make a unique instance of whatever you want to say for the observer. And so everything is instanced. You can look it up all day long, and that's how we get away with it. which is it's unique to the observer. That way we don't have to mess around with trying to figure out how to make it, correspond perfectly, because why would it have to correspond perfectly to everybody? Nobody's even paying attention. They're only paying attention to their own monitor. So unless you can beam two monitors into the same guy's head, there's never going to be a conflict.
So here's a subscriber that lives in the Dallas area, and he's got a location where he's near the airport, and everything just lines up where he just gets airplanes flying through the sun over and over and over again because he's at the right distance.
Sure.
So we just recommend people, check out all these types of proofs,
to
right?
dumb people in the comments, it's like, no, the plane isn't flying through the sun. And if you went to that plane isn't going through the sun. It's only from this particular observer's standpoint do you see it. Because otherwise, you'd have all sorts of people reporting it for all sorts of angles. This particular angle has either been overlooked accidentally or deliberately. I'm not sure which. I think that God sometimes will throw in some breadcrumbs, some mysterious things.
Easter eggs or something?
Easter eggs or, something that people will be like, wow, that's cool. People love a mystery. They always have.
What do you see when we show you this clip, Mark?
Oh, yeah. This is how
Scroll up, please, Jason, so they can see it on the audience.
Yeah. This is how we build.
Zoom in.
So the thought is, okay, when you're creating motion for something in a game, do you create this massive landscape and then have it fly over, or you just leave the plane or wherever this thing is, a flying ship, and then just have the landscape build and leave? Because remember, when you're looking out the side windows or the front windows, usually in the side in this case, that it looks identical. You're creating the illusion that they're flying over this massive landscape, but the landscape is being built in real time while you're flying over it.
Yes.
In Warcraft, they did this with a train simulation. You can, if you guys ever want to look it up, it's the Warcraft train illusion, which is the train isn't moving; it's the landscape that's moving. And but again, we see this. I'm sorry, real quick. This is a weakness in human perception. You guys have all done it, which is you're in stop and go traffic in your car, or you're in a train car or an airplane, but usually in traffic, and you zone out for a second, and then all of a sudden the car next to you is moving, and you don't know if you took your foot off the brake. You're like, am I moving? And that's because we have no concept of, we're really, really bad when it comes to perception. So they did studies where they put people in a wooden car, and they either sometimes move the car and sometimes move the wall in front of them. No one could figure it out. And I think this world was not only designed in this way, but we were designed to be in it. Meaning, we were designed to be not necessarily tricked, but to believe the illusion. So yeah, this is great. I don't know where you found this, but that's a great, wonderful representation of what we do.
Just before you click off of it, Jason, what I'm trying to get, really want people to understand. So the way that we understand, we're going to get to mapping, right? So there's no borders in the virtual reality. Okay. It's a borderless reality that's contained. Right. We don't believe in there a dome. We think it's a gradient that's been coded, right? When you get so high, you can't fly anymore. There's nothing to push off. And space agencies will literally tell you that. It's not even a secret that they can't fly above, 250,000 feet? Everything just stops.
Right. In the virtual worlds that we make, we create, and I'm going to use a term I came up with, negative physics, which is when you get towards the end, the guardrail, like you guys mentioned, it will push back. What happens is you get slower and slower, and you're moving, or your tires are moving, but you're not going forward anymore. You can hit the gas all you want. You are done in that direction.
You nailed it.
And that's wouldn't surprise me if that's what we do here, because come on, every indication says that that's what happens when we reach that point here.
Yes, and within what we're showing in this diagram holds the key. So we do believe that this reality was created in such a way that you could false represent it in many different ways. If it was a AE map with the sun circling above, everybody would know. If it was a sphere spinning through space, everybody would know. It was made in a way where it could be represented in many ways. And it actually takes the heart condition of an observer. But what we know is that whenever we have the map projection centered on the observer, that's where we can actually have things accurate. And we're going to get to that. I just really wanted to point out that there's no borders in this reality, but it is a containment. Just like any video game, you only have what the map is.
Yeah.
And then you can teleport, right, to another map.
There you go. Where'd you get this, by the way? This is a cool one.
I found this on Twitter. We work with, we have a small but powerful team, and I actually have a goldsmith in Estonia who finds, you would not believe, this guy just lives, sleeps, and eats truth and research. And he found this clip for us when we were trying to explain virtual reality, and it's a good one.
That's a great. Again, if you get a chance, look up the Warcraft train illusion.
We're going to look that up. Yeah, thank you.
I cannot remember the name of the train. Warcraft people, please forgive me. It's been a few years since I've been playing, but it's the train that the Horde train that you're on, and they build this on the whole landscape. They show you how they do it. The train doesn't move. They generate the landscape just like this around it, and it creates the illusion of movement, and you cannot break out of the illusion. That's the kicker. I've ridden that train many times. You cannot snap out of the illusion. And that's because of what we are, which is why flight simulators work so well with us. I mean, hell, I still get dizzy if I play one of the original Mario Kart games from Super Nintendo, or why, if some people can't, and I'm one of them, why I can't watch a roller coaster on television, even back with the low res days. You're going up and down. It's like, why do I feel sick? It's because your mind is tricking you into believing it.
All right, so moving on, you're probably familiar with this.
Yep.
It's sort of a two models in one.
Sure.
Right here, because you've got the like the personal domed circle of sight right here.
Right.
And then you've got the stars that are supposed to be like rotating around this way. So I guess if we just bring up the only three models again, so there's the geocentric, heliocentric spinning balls, the horizontal circles, and then the equidistant circles tilted based on latitude. So the horizontal circles thing is what the whole final experiment really put the end to.
Right.
Would you agree?
Rephrase the question.
The horizontal circles is what
the only thing that the TFE did for me was, again, I'd never lost a wink of sleep about it, because it was 1 out of every 10 interviews I ever did. People ask me, "Oh, what's the weakest aspect of the flat Earth model?" I go, "Well, it's got to be the Antarctic sun if there's only one light source." But since we don't know what the hell's going on in the sky, you guys are more advanced stuff than most people. All it did was like, okay, well, there's some sort of, maybe a singular light source that's happening in Antarctica. However, does that do anything to anything else? No. For me, the sky never proved the ground. So, but keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is Jaren's using this now. This is the Andrew Marsh model applied to a sphere. This is what we've been using for like the last 7 years. This is the Andrew Marsh model that you can actually import your own 3D models into it. And this sun right here acts as a light projector, and it actually shows the shadows where you can move anywhere on Earth, move your location, move your time, your day, and it shows everything accurate to 100th of a degree per second.
Nice.
And this is the model that we say is taking place, because every time we've tested it, it's accurate to 100th of a degree per second.
And it's a fixed flat plane. And like Jason said, if you're building a solar panel property and you want to know where your maximum position is, you're going to use this modeling program. You're not going to use.
Neat.
Yeah, that's what it's designed for. Now, if you go back to the one that Jaren's using, again, he claims this is the globe model, and we're going to show you basically, Mark, how it's debunked. Yeah, this is because they don't have a model, Mark. They really don't have a globe model. First off, you can see the fixed stars around it. They're not predictable, measurable, or discernible in any way. It's just a bunch of dots that they have, right? So right off the bat, we're already missing all of the globe model. Right. All we have is the sphere here with the Andrew Marsh. And as Jason enlarges it, you can see that it's just a flat plane with the sun equidistantly tilted doing circles around the observer. You can actually see the sun set into the globe here.
Right.
In the model. Yep. So here's the problem, Jason. Let's get to it. Let's show Mark what actually is wrong with this modeling program. And the creator, Andrew Marsh, we should probably reach out and have him on sometime. I know Will Duffy, Jason interviewed him, and he said a whole bunch of lies. He said he wasn't doing a documentary. Jason has timestamped everything that Will said he wasn't going to do, and he did. And he said
he's absolutely doing one.
Yeah. We knew.
Why would you go down there and not?
Yeah,
Hell,
we knew.
We would do one. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and so he said we're not done with that, Jason. He said that he got a hold of Andrew Marsh, and Andrew Marsh said the program that we're using is a sphere model. Okay. And they'll use something like mathematics. They'll say, oh, well, it takes into account the circumference of Earth and all this other nonsense, which can be easily gridded out on a flat baseline. So when you actually show here, Jason, if you can clip out, so the Earth in their spherical model is tilted, as you know, at 23.5 degrees. This is how the seasons work, correct? In the spherical model. They can't have reality without the Earth being tilted. Therefore, Will's entire experiment was under the understanding that because the Earth is tilted, right, during the winter months in the north, the sun should circle, never setting around or above, they say, Antarctica.
Right.
So what happens here is we have the Earth tilted in the Andrew Marsh model. Well, there's a problem with that. And Jaron and MC Toon are not going to show you that, nor will they even debate us about it. I would love to debate either one of them and show their audience how they're misrepresenting this. So you can see the Earth tilted here. And if the Earth was spinning on its axis like this, Mark, can you see a problem with having a 90-270 sunrise sunset?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Because this is the equinox. So the equinox is when the Earth in the heliocentric model is tilted 23.5 degrees to the side.
It's tilted.
So if we go to the winter solstice.
Now this is interesting. Now it works. Now we have a 90-270.
90-270. It's flat this way. If we go to,
so it's opposite of what they need.
Summer solstice. No, it's tilted forward, but you would still be able to get a 90-270.
But when you actually do measure it, which is on the equinoxes twice a year, where you can take a compass, anybody on the map too. Again, this is another heliocentric debunk because you would have different tangent angle lines, which Jason is going to get to, measuring to the sun. It's tilted here. You could not be on that equator and have the Earth spinning. You would not measure at 90-270. But so what Andrew Marsh had to do is when you go in to actually look at this, watch what they do with the Earth's position when they snap to. Oh, they had to stand the Earth straight up again. Look at this.
Oh, I see.
Instead of having it tilted on the ecliptic orbit in the way that they needed to for it to be the supposed 24-hour suns, they make it everything 90.
Now I can zoom into it, but it had to stand it up straight. If you go back to like the heliocentric
now it's tilted
view, but you can't get in close to it now.
You can't,
because the only way you can get in close to it is for them to have it stand up straight.
Then they snap it into place. And you as a video game designer can understand that Andrew Marsh ran into the problem that he couldn't actually model it, nor that Jaron's model here, you can't actually import your 3D model and show the actual shadows onto this.
Yeah.
It won't let you.
Yeah.
It won't, simply because it doesn't exist, right? That's Will Duffy's favorite line. And unfortunately, what they do is take the truth and then invert it.
Yeah. And that's the problem with all games, which is why, or not just me, I have games, but all simulations, is when you get it, when you finally get in there, they don't, the curvature formula is such a pain that they just don't do it. They just don't put it in because who's going to know any different? And they get away with it. So the question is, if they don't do it at all, why, in any program, then why, who's to say we're using it here? And we see the same thing here, which was, you watched the stuff long enough where all the military advisors that I've talked to, all the firing solutions from every weapon system that we use, they all say, oh yeah, we've heard about the curve. We don't use it in the firing solutions. I don't care if you're using a tank or a cannon or a missile, whatever, we don't use it, and it works just fine.
No Coriolis, no curvature, none of that gets factored into the equation.
Yeah, especially the Coriolis. Yeah, the spin of the Earth and the curve. And my favorite is, my tank commander friend. He goes, "Do you know how hard war would be for a tank if we had to factor in the curvature, the speed of the Earth and the Coriolis or the the curvature at the same time, it would be we'd be missing all the time if that was actually a real thing, and they don't. So, except
one
for,
more thing, Jason, before you move on, it would be interesting to see, Mark, if you brought some of those pilots back, because I don't know if you paid attention to Jaren's last stream with Wolfie and one of Wolfie's friends, but it is hilarious. I can't wait till we get time to go through it. The two of them came on, and so they're saying now that an assisted gyroscope can lose its actual what do they call it, Jason? When it loses its place in space, that due to gravity,
loses its fixed place. Really?
Rigidity, right?
Oh, for the love of
so, and they're using an assisted one, because when we did the debate with Red's Rhetoric, Jason's point was, show us an unassisted gyroscope process 360 degrees. Show us, if you're flying around a sphere, the gyroscope should process 360 degrees if you go all the way around it. So now they have a actual assisted one, and Wolfie's using that to disprove the fact that the gyroscopes only work on a flat plane. The other thing they're saying now is that planes don't actually use the horizon, nor do they fly level. What they do, he says, is they follow a pressure gradient around a curve. And they're saying, well, because it's only the size of a nickel over 2 football fields, that you'd never be able to tell. But I mean, it would obviously be telling us that it is traveling around a sphere, right? There wouldn't be a plane of path. It wouldn't be a flat tangent.
Size of a nickel over 2 football fields.
That's what Jaren's saying.
That perspective is a little light. I mean, come on. And I'm sorry, and I don't want to get into the gossip or anything, but come on, this coming from a channel, I lost count of the pilots he brought on. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, flat earth pilots all day long. And all of a sudden it's like, oh no, globe pilots. Okay.
Yeah, we're not against. We'd love to have Jaren on. We'll go back on his show. We'd love to have a conversation about all this stuff, but he doesn't really answer us. Him and MC Toon, and we're waiting for MC Toon and Will Duffy to put out all of their experiments. Will Duffy's dragging his feet because we're not willing to get into the debate until they have everything out there, right? We want to go through each and every point that, because they spent a lot of money on this, right? This experiment.
Yeah, they did. Well, they spent a lot of money pushing 300 grand on the experiment. It's like
crazy.
And it's like, sorry, I know what that experiment was for. It was for one thing only, and that was to give an excuse for a certain channel that I'm not going to name to go completely in the other direction in a very short amount of time with no real reason. And
a lot of times it's just to plant the tiniest seed of doubt. So the tiniest seed of faith can create so much, and the tiniest seed of doubt can actually destroy a lot of people as well.
It can, but at the same time, this particular community has been, as you know, this is different because it's the truther community, and they're always looking. You guys know, I mean, they're always looking, squinting at people, going, "All right, what's going on?" And when it finally happened, people, no, jumping ship. No, I could count on 2 hands the people that jump ship. And sorry, I've got, we can talk about off air, but no, I'm not worried. But yes, you're right. The seed of doubt. That's it. It was there, and it gave them a reason to go, but the impact was not nearly what they thought it was, because we were ahead of it. Look, they can't outgun us.
We're going to get to a tab. We predicted it, right, Jason? You've got all that ready to go. Wait till you see, Mark, how long ahead we were.
Okay. So I just want to show while we got this. Like, I want everybody to see the trick that's being played, because Jaren will come here and he'll change the latitude like this. And he'll make it look like it's always pointing at the sun, right? Because it tilts and changes like this. Where when we do that on a flat plane, you see it tilt like this. All right? Do you see how as I'm changing my latitude right here, it's just the path of the sun around the observer tilting back and forth like that. This is the way the heliocentrists will portray that.
Right.
And we just want to show you the trick here. And that is when you model this out and you take all those shots, and this right here would be at the equator on the equinox where it's 90 degrees overhead.
Yeah.
And then, here it is tilted again. And I've placed these out now around the outside of a curve here. The trick is that if a surveyor had a theodolite and he was at the equator and he took, you know, it was the equinox, and he took his reading, and the sun was 90 degrees overhead. If this was, if you had another person that was at 10 degrees north latitude, and they set up their theodolite in a ball world, right, the baseline will have changed 10 degrees.
Right.
So the surveyor at the equator would have to say to the one that's at 10 degrees, hey, listen, whatever measurement you get, your baseline is 10 degrees different than mine, so you have to subtract 10 degrees from your observation.
Yeah, this is a huge point. I really want Mark to grasp this, because it's something that's never been brought forth in the whole entire decade of flat Earth. So if you were on a curved surface, Mark, and I went to that 10 degree north, and you were on the equator, and Jason was 10 degrees south,
right,
and we all took a sextant and measured our angle to the sun, right, and we didn't have to minus the angle of the curvature off of our measurement, there's no way we would actually have the same measurement. It's so easy for people to understand that the baseline.
Look, easy's a relative term. Most people, I mean, come on. The reason why one of the big reasons I made the flat Earth clues and called them the flat Earth clues is because that was the easiest term I could come up with as a starting point. You know, it doesn't matter what you understand about, again, this is pretty complex software compared to a lot of people. Flat Earth is it's two syllables. Everybody knows it and everybody hates it, but they understand the concept, which is, okay, flat Earth. And then I try to go from there. I go, you realize that everything you've ever seen on a computer screen that tries to be 3D, it's just 2D simulating as 3D, but it's on a flat grid.
Yes, well said.
Been a flat grid, unless.
So this was created because Jason created a coordinate system. So we're going to get to coordinate systems again, stuff that we really want to share with Strange World. I know that Flat Earth Gang, space audits. There's so many channels out here that are pushing the boundaries with our known reality. And so Jason made a coordinate system, and somebody came in and tried to debunk him, some European guy that thought he was the smartest genius ever. And so Jason actually took what he said and, okay, yeah, let's model it out. Thank you. Finally, somebody came forth and showed us a little bit of how we should actually measure this. So he just plotted out the 10 degrees, right? Jason, explain how this came about, this model that you made.
Yeah, so geometry is the real math. Like anything that is real and buildable, it's done with geometry.
Sure.
And so just doing 10 degrees, using a angle finder tool, just did 10 degrees all the way around, and then connected the points here. So that would be your 10 degree horizontal latitude. And when you do that, you do end up with this equidistant from like the equator to 10 degrees, from 10 degrees to 20. You do get these equidistant measurements around the outside of a ball.
Yeah.
The only thing is to be intellectually honest, you have to, the person that's at the equator that sets up their theodolite, and it's like this direction, right? Jaron down at Antarctica at 80 degrees, if they were setting up their theodolite, you literally have to minus 80 degrees off of any observation that you would get. And that's pointing directly into Earth if Earth was a ball, right?
Yeah. We've got more modeling. The other thing too to think about is, how is the sun above their heads, circling locally around them, and the shadows? Keep going, Jason. I don't want to get too far ahead. I know we're getting closer through the tabs, but again, we don't have a time limit. And this is just great to get Mark here, because, you know, you've been around. When I became a flat earther, it was 2015, 2016. It was just math. You and Eric were the two most talked about people. Flat Earth Clues was genius. It was basic, and it really did help a lot of people. Like, again, the part that I liked best about it was your game aspect. That to me was always, I was always like that, Mark, that was your best strong point. And now we can really see why. And then your whole, like I said earlier, the clock speed, understanding how to mess around with clock speeds is very genius. So Jason, continue. Go ahead.
Thank you for that, by the way. Even though it was a cheat, and had that company found out after I ended up working for him, they would have fired me on the spot. I was kind of proud of it, and I never could tell the president. I was so sad. It's like I was like, oh man.
I don't know if it's cheat. You just were able to intellectually get another way to store up the points.
I bent the rules, but again, there were no rules to bend, so I just kind of made up my own. Yeah, it's like it was fun. So if everyone wants to email me, I'll tell you the story about it. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. So just pointing out again here that all the software that actually shows actual measurements to like accuracy, hundredths of a degree per second.
Yeah.
This program, you literally cannot get the sun to not come out of Earth. Like when you back it up and move around, it has to come out of Earth in order for it to work. But
right.
So one of the things that we talk about is the distance that we can see, because there's been a lot of disinformation associated with it. One of the things that we stick to is that the farthest observation on Earth so far, ground-based, is Mount Everest from 200 kilometers.
Sure.
Have you seen this from Kathmandu?
Not that particular one, but that one would make sense. Sure.
And so we teach that, so the tallest object can be seen from the furthest away.
Right.
But so obviously Mount Everest is going to have the largest circle of sight, right?
Right.
And so here's the footage.
Yeah, so we just try to keep everything sort of like in perspective, that when you're here, you really need to zoom into an area that is reasonable as far as how far a person can see.
Right.
And so the distance to the horizon calculator is something that we talk about a bunch, along with angular resolution.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, if you can see 20 miles to the horizon, you're going to be seeing the sun come out of Earth and set into Earth.
Don't you have a graphic for that, or I don't know if you've got it ready?
I'm not sure.
Oh, he created a model.
Thank you, by the way, for putting that over where I live. I appreciate that.
Well, it helps for a person to relate to the area that they.
No, it's good.
Grew up in, right?
It's good. Actually, where the dot is I lived on just north of there for a year in Canada. Right there.
Ron's Canadian.
There you go. What province?
I was from Ontario, but I did live in Abbotsford and Mission, BC, and Maple Ridge, BC a little bit. But I guess it's now just, America, right? It's going to be the 51st state soon enough.
That's not going to happen. But no, I lived in Victoria for a year.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. Hands down.
Nice. I didn't even know it existed. Most Americans don't. They think it's like Vancouver, and then west, it's just Bigfoot. That's all it is. There's nothing past to the west.
Victoria has the largest trees. I guess not more than the redwoods, I've heard, but and it's just like heaven on earth there.
It is. It's gorgeous. I was amazed, and it's not. I mean, you could see it from just up the road from here. And you can't get there because you have to drive around.
There's nothing as romantic and just awe-inspiring when you see those Rocky Mountains, in my opinion. I was just blown away when I seen them. I just couldn't believe I'd never seen anything like that, just as far as you can see.
And by the way, that reminds me of the SR-71 pilot that was going to, the retired SR-71 pilot that was going around telling people, I flew the Blackbird, blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about how at 70,000 feet from Phoenix, he could see the coastline of California, Los Angeles. But when he looked to his right and looked up, he could see where the Rocky Mountains met Canada. And again, he didn't know what the hell he was saying. It's like, dude, that's way too far. Even at 70,000 feet, that is way too far. That, that's over 1,000 miles. But he didn't know. And that only works on a flat plane. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is a timestamp that we're pretty proud of. It's from June 16th, 2023, where we were talking about the distance to the vanishing point, right, and the formulas and stuff. But this is where we pointed out that we had always said that there was no 24-hour sun because all the things that we had seen all looked fake, right?
Right.
And so we were constantly saying no 24-hour sun, no 24-hour sun.
Mm-hmm.
But in this podcast, what we
look with your
your compass. What we did here is we showed that the model actually predicted a 24-hour sun. And we talk about how the model shows it, yet no real evidence had been put forth for it. And so this was long before the final experiment ever came around. And so then this was January 28th of 2024, when somebody in one of our Telegram groups gave us a link to this Arctic sunset, where we saw for the first time what looked like genuine 24-hour sun footage, except from the north.
Sure.
We didn't believe the north or the south.
Ah, got it.
And yeah, so this, we looked at it, we looked at what the model says about it, and everything looked spot on. And so is because of that, as soon as we heard about the final experiment, right away, I think we're maybe the first flat earthers to even speak about it. We heard Red's Rhetoric talking about it, and right away we were showing our prediction for what the 24-hour sun would be, right?
Yeah, that they would see it. And I went on a bunch of channels. I went on Melodome. I went on Flatzoids. I did the rounds. You know, the only place I didn't go was I couldn't get on Nathan Oakley's. And speaking of Nathan Oakley, he's writing a book, and we hope to have him on to hear about his book and ask him questions about all the stuff that we're discussing tonight too, Mark. But kudos to you for actually joining us. The last person I think that joined us was Mac Fokker. Rest his soul wherever he is. Oh, good
Lord.
He was the last person. He was brave. And you know what? He actually skydived, and he was able to see two cities that were over 50 miles apart. And he said there was no angle of degree away. The buildings were actually perfectly perpendicular. You know, sure. Mac actually, you know, he could actually debate when push came to shove, you know.
Oh, no, Mac was great.
I do miss Mac.
Yeah. He was a fellow Canadian, of course.
Yeah, and good hockey player like me. And, you know, he was skydiving, he even skydived not far from here. But interestingly, you are the next person that was brave enough to join us, you know.
Well, look, I don't really have beef with anyone. You know, I try to say, look, I know... I try to be as objective as I can and remind people, like, look, I start my day with flat Earth, so nothing's off the table. Yeah. And there are some things I like more than others. And
you've always been very respectful. You've never really put anybody down. You never got into shill wars. You've always kept very clean to your content, Mark, and I do respect that. And as I get older and mature, I definitely see that being a beneficial thing. And, you know, just a funny side note for everybody that's tuning in, I was the first one, and I don't like to say the word but I had designed the first ever Flat Earth conference, and it was going to be held at the CN Tower. And we had the best observation looking point in North America. Neat. We were going to do a balloon launch. And basically, because I discovered that the AE map didn't work due to the path of the sun and other things like that, I was, you know, basically kicked out of the community. But I mean, what a great place. Is there a better place? I guess you have the Needle in Seattle, right? Space
Needle's not nearly as tall. And
it's close.
Its vantage point, it doesn't, there's things obstructing it all. It's at the bottom of a hill. It's not great. Yeah. The tower in Canada. Are you talking about not the one in Toronto?
Toronto, that's right.
Yeah, that one. I actually went up in that one.
Yeah, and did you feel it move?
No.
Oh, you can feel it move if you're paying attention.
But I wasn't really, you know, I was just excited to be up there because I was waiting. I was there for a film festival.
So you don't have any fear of heights, do you?
No, I don't have any fear of heights.
Because it's high. It's like 1,800 feet, the top observatory.
Right, no, it's way up there. No, I get motion sickness, but heights don't bother me.
The Earth definitely looks flat from up there. And they have a really, really nice conference center down in the underground area of the CN Tower. It would have been such a wonderful place to hold a conference.
No, Toronto's amazing. I mean, come on. Toronto's so Americanized. I mean, it's got an American baseball team. It's got an American basketball team. And it's like, okay, what are we doing for this in Toronto for? But whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. So here we go. Now we're going to get into this awesome section. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay.
We've talked about the model as far as the equidistant circles, where the sun, the moon, the stars, they're rotating around the observer, rising from Earth, setting into Earth. Now this right here is about the coordinate system.
Yeah.
So this right here is an actual 2-scale projection of the coordinate system, where if you take the lengths of the latitude at the equator, the lengths of the latitudes at 10, 20, 30, all the way right from any one of the latitude and longitude coordinate system calculators, right? Because the amount of nautical miles per degree at these latitudes change.
Sure.
So it's 60 nautical miles at the equator, but it's 59 nautical miles at 10 degrees north and south. And so when you plot that out, this is the actual shape of the coordinate system in 2D.
Okay.
Have you ever seen?
I have not. I have never seen this before. Never.
Yeah. So this is, and the way you can sort of relate to it. So this has got like an onion shape to it because the poles have 0 length to them. And so the way this, the closest that we can show it is like with the moleweed. And so with the moleweed here, let me get this smaller. Let me get this centered up again.
So we were talking earlier about how that boundary thing, only on the observer's position do we have something that can be accurate. Remember, Mark?
Right.
We're going to carry that over into understanding coordinate systems.
Okay.
And the other key point is poles.
When we're centered on the equator here, now all of a sudden we've got the continents basically as we sort of recognize them, right?
Yeah.
Now at the actual center here, if you're following a line of longitude that's at the center,
yeah,
this is the most exact 2-scale representation that you can get of anywhere. And so if you want to see something over here, as long as it's staying centered to the equator, now all of a sudden this longitude is exactly correct. But you can see that the farther you get away from the center, right, they distort.
Everything distorts.
But as you rotate it like this, you know, like if it's centered, this is basically a perfect representation of Australia.
Scalable.
Right.
So we had originally, when we first went looking for what coordinate system works, because we understood the Earth is 2 poles.
Has to have 2 poles.
We started out with something that looks like this. I don't know if you've seen any of our older content, we just had this one image that we had to piece together. But so this is stereographic. This is when you have 2 poles, you have a north pole and a south pole.
Right.
Now if I were to center this back up again, this is also a really 2-scale representation of Earth, except what's happened is the poles are being super distorted because
So a couple of things to point out here before you leave, Jason. So you'll hear people like Jaronism or Will Duffy, and sometimes I like to name names, and not because I'm trying to start fights here, just because I want to make sure that everybody understands. So when they say, okay, flat earthers, show me where the South Pole would be, right? So you absolutely can put together limitless amounts of maps that are flat that show you exactly where the poles are. With you have a known coordinate system, you can create that into any shape or system that you want, as long as it actually measures to the coordinates, right? And we're going to explain after how those coordinates were actually achieved.
Sure.
Yeah, so this is
there's Antarctica.
This is the moleweed with the actual magnetic
lines,
poles. Magnetic poles being applied to it.
Which, caveat, Jason, before you get away, do not work on a spherical Earth, right? You would expect the magnetic poles to be at the poles of the sphere, right? Not in 2 random places.
Right.
Well, plus the Curie point sort of throws a...
Well, that... Yeah,
The
which
molten-
again, nobody wants to talk about. 99% of people. Curie point, you could tell it to them. It's like, is that Indian food? No.
Curie
It's
point, that's
not.
good. Does it come with naan bread? No. What the Curie point is that when something gets too hot, it loses its magnet properties, right?
Yeah.
So the Earth's core, they say it's hotter than the face of the sun, right?
Right.
So Earth could not have, and the magnetic properties of Earth are supposedly what causes gravity, right? Or no?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How can you have a spinning molten magnet? Show me where you can create that anywhere. And I mean, they call it a Curie point for the reason. You know, it applies if you can't have both. You can't have the magnetic force be there and yet it be molten. It can't be. So, but again, sorry, you guys already know this. It's like they tell you, it's like we know what's at the center, 4,000 miles down. It's like, really?
Yeah.
You don't know because you only drilled less than 10.
8 miles, right?
Yeah, 8
In
miles.
Russia.
How do you know? And you can look it up in Wiki, and they're not shy about it. They say, well, we're extrapolating from volcanoes. We really don't know what's going on down there.
Mhm.
So why didn't you say that in the textbooks? Why you show us these cross sections? Because we got to put something
The
in there.
gobstopper Earth, right?
Yeah, the gobstopper Earth. Good one. Nice. Yeah, you've got to put something in there because people hate question marks, and science really hates question marks. So they say, this is our best guess. It's not really a guess, but this is our best guess until we're absolutely wrong, and then we'll change it with no apologies. Sorry, go ahead.
So this is really the most two-scale representation of Earth as on a flat plane, a two-dimensional picture of it that we've been able to come up with, and nobody can really complain about it too much because everything is to scale. The only thing is that there is distortion.
It's like
the farther you go from the outside, where like you really need to be able to rotate it,
sure,
like we were doing before.
Only around the observer is it actually accurate. The further away you move inside the virtual reality, the more the distorted. And you had explained earlier, it's like, do those lands even exist until you actually observe them?
Do they?
Well, I mean, from the observers there, they do, but it's a collective thing.
Right.
But so what's key here is you'll have, again, channels like MC Toon and Will Duffy and Jeranism talking about how the latitudes get larger and smaller, and this is only possible on a sphere. Well, we're actually showing you a more accurate stationary flat representation of that exact phenomena taking place. So the way that they were actually to ascertain these marks, so they do it two different ways. One's from sky observations of stars, and the other was, so two teams started in the center of the map. One went east, one went west, and they set their clocks to noon. And then they went until they reached noon again, and they were at the 180-degree reciprocal spots.
Right.
That's how they supposedly marked out the lines of latitude and longitude. And that's how they created the grid system and mapped out the flat plane. And again, what people on the other side of the screen need to understand is this reality was created like a guessing game. It's like a treasure box, like a video game, for the lack of better ways to explain it. I know Mark has been saying that for over a decade now,
Well,
right?
I mean, people at least understand the term.
Right? So you've got to explore the video game. And it was created in a way where you can represent, if it was created in an AE map with the sun circling, everybody would know. If there was curvature to the Earth and it was spinning through space, everybody would know. You'd have different stars every 6 months, a whole other sky in the sky, right?
Right.
But what it is this supernatural, we call it the stereographic biblical virtual reality. And let's get into more of this. I wonder, Mark, what do you say when I say those things?
I've never heard that term quite like that before. Stereographic biblical geography?
SBVR is what we've labeled the model that we represent. So it's stereographic, that's the two poles.
Yeah.
Biblical, because we go with the creator being the creator from the Bible.
Yeah.
And then virtual reality. So SBVR.
That's our model.
You may have coined something there.
Yeah, so this right here is some interesting stuff where
gravy footage.
we got this footage from guys out at these are just the guys that are boat captains out by these oil wells.
Yeah.
And
the Gulf of America.
He's lined up some pretty cool shots here, and
those are great shots.
we'll get to a section here where you can see the interaction with like the flames that are coming off of the rig here with the sun.
Yeah.
But it's going to, the sun's actually going to end up in this smoke. So there's an experiment that I would have loved for the characters to do down in Antarctica. If you had a snow gun, you'll see the situation setting up here in just a second.
This is just amazing. So visually, just wow. I wish I could go out to sea and film this myself. And when Jason shows you the modeling, here it goes. Watch this. Look at this.
Yeah. So now you've got the sun lined up where you're going to have some of the smoke going around the front side and some of the smoke going around the back side.
Cool.
Of the sun right there.
Yeah.
Like,
that's neat.
So the idea I would have had is if you had a snow gun, you go out 15 miles from their camp down in Antarctica, and blow up snow like this, and watch for the sun to go through it, and see if you can get the interaction with the sun out at that distance. It's sort of like the plane thing we were talking about earlier.
Do you have that modeling ready to show? From Antarctica. So we modeled it up too in the shadows. Very interesting thing took place with the shadows and their length. Again, showing a really local sun. Nowhere near what would take place if the Earth was a sphere with the sun at 92 million miles away.
Right.
I'll try to give you a little bit of context here. What I've got is this is the Google shot of where they were at Union Glacier, and I've got this robot guy down here, and he's in front of Mount Rossman.
Okay.
Right. So this is Mount Rossman, and then this lines up with that. So the drone footage that we got from Duffy. So when he does his pan around shot, you get to see the lengths of the shadows as he does his 360-degree turn, and so what we're saying is that, let's get our sun into view here. So the sun is set up as an actual light source in this modeling program right here, and so as it comes around, it is doing the lighting off of the letters that I have out here.
Okay.
And
they're acting as the mountains.
Got it.
The big thing is that out here in this direction, when we go to this video here, so we're watching the footage, it's coming around, so you have these longer shadows. The real long shadows are like behind us right here, but when you're looking at the sun this direction here, you got extremely short shadows, like the sun is literally right above those mountains right there.
Yeah.
And so we're just showing everybody how when you do the triangulation, like the sun was literally circling around them 24 hours a day, but only like 15 miles away from them.
Cool.
In Antarctica, and the shadows prove it. And
so do you have the model with the long shadows?
Oh, I know I don't have it loaded up right now.
But yeah, the short shadows, they're the most important aspect, because if it was a spherical Earth with a 93 million miles, 92.7 or what?
Yeah.
Is that the actual measurement?
I always call it 93, but whatever.
93. When I say 92, Jason always corrects me. It's 93.
What's 300K between friends?
It's so ridiculous what they come up with. Yeah. They continue to move the sun's goalpost every single time. But this model shows it, how local it is. And we're not saying there's multiple suns. We're saying that there's one sun, and it's traveling, around you as the observer. And when you move around, its position based on your latitude and longitude changes its tilt. That's it.
Again, I'm never going to discount it because of, what I heard years ago, that whole mystery at Fatima thing. which was a long time ago, which was the crowd was pushing 100,000 people, and the sun was going all over the place in the sky, and all of them said the same thing. It's like, yeah, the sun is doing something it shouldn't be doing, but at the same time, it was only doing it for them. It wasn't doing it in the next city
Locally.
over, in the next state over. Yeah, and
The flickering you're talking about.
well, and it moved, apparently, not just flickering. But yeah, but even if it was just standing still, you're right. It only makes sense if it was local for them.
Mm-hmm. It says that in the book of Joshua, but I think it might have stood still for everybody. Yeah.
Right.
More virtual reality proof. Like I said, we've got so much. We're not going to get into all that tonight. We would like to in the future. We'll see if maybe your audience wants to hear more. There's so many biblical virtual reality scriptures. It's just insane. It's awesome. When you start to open up to it, you start to see like, wow, okay, what the sun and the moon stood still in the sky. How did that happen?
Joshua, for me, I mean, that is a VR story, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, doesn't it make more sense? They just hit pause on the sky instead of, I don't know, altering the physics of an entire solar system. Do you know how hard that would be? I'm sorry. I'm not saying God's lazy. I'm saying God's efficient. He's like, hey, I'm not doing that. I'm not shutting the whole thing down.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
So just show quickly the explanation for how the 24-hour sun is possible. So we've got the sun rising at 90 east, setting 270 west. It's centered here. And so if you adjust the days, you can see that the path of the sun, it can rise from 23.5 degrees south of the observer and 23.5 degrees north of the observer. So then what happens is, let's go to the south here. Because of that, when you let's see, I want to go latitude south. So as you go south here, because it's 23.5 degrees out here on this rim, once you get beyond 66.5 degrees, then all of a sudden the path of the sun is above the horizon for the whole time without setting.
Got it.
And that's on a flat and stationary plane.
Of course.
And so there, go ahead.
If you go to the poles, right? If you go to the extreme poles, the sun is literally above the horizon for 180 days. Right?
Vertical.
At one pole.
Perfectly vertical. And this is how, was it Edmondson Scott? This was how he was actually able to navigate to this position on the flat fixed plane. And he was measuring the sun's path. And when he got to the point where the sun stayed perfectly vertical up in the sky, he had realized that he had reached the south Earth celestial pole. And the interesting thing about this is that the difference between our model and the spherical model is that our baseline never changes. We always measure off of a flat fixed baseline like you would in a video game. Whereas if we were on a sphere, you'd be having to minus the tangent of the curvature of the angle of the sun's position in the sky. It's a very complicated and a detailed conversation that we want to simplify again and bring more forward, moving forward.
And maybe just point out something you'll see here. So this is the model we use. We're at the South Pole. Sun's going around horizontal circles like this. If we go to the one that Jaren's using now, and we put this at the South Pole and hit play on it, it sort of looks like it's doing the same thing as ours, but remember, you got to go out to this view. And now all of a sudden, when they add 23.5 degrees, now how do you get the equal circles?
Right.
How do the people on the top of the ball? How do people on the top of the ball have sunlight with that view? Right. How is the sun? So I'll go back to the ball. So the sun is actually supposedly measurable to be traveling around the Tropic of Capricorn here. Correct? If you were to take a sextant on the Tropic of Capricorn, you should be able to point at the sun, but it's showing it above or below the spherical Earth here, right? So this is a huge contradiction in the heliocentric model.
By the way, I like the nice touch of the stars that are out there that aren't tied to anything.
There's no constellations. There's no discernible.
It's just dots.
We asked them for a model. We've been asking them, Mark, for like 8 years. Can you please show us a discernible, measurable, accurate model of the spherical reality? And this is what they give us. This is Jaren and MC Tunes You know, and we'd love to have the debate, but they're still not putting forth their evidence. Like, this is our model they're trying to use, right?
Yeah. Also, like,
just-
by the way, what you may have, you didn't bring up tonight yet, but you know, when you get up higher in elevations, there's so many people that say, why are there so few stars?
Yeah, that's
when
great.
you get up to certain elevations.
Great point. There are no stars.
There are no stars,
and above 30,000 feet, they're really not visible.
They thin out. Look, I've done business travel, and I would think, you know, when I got up to 35, pushing 38,000 feet, it's like, oh, it should be gorgeous. It's not.
Black.
It's just freaking black. And to where I challenge everybody now, I go, look, I understand your excuse for Apollo not having stars in the entire moon program.
Man, were they sad.
But now, well, exposure settings, obviously. But now, with all the cameras being digital, with every filter you could possibly have, we've got amazing cameras nowadays. Artemis, no stars in space.
It's long exposure photography they have now, right? They can leave the aperture open for a minute.
Yeah, 50 miles away from the moon, no stars. There are no stars in space, and it's like, okay, is that acceptable? That's just what we're just not gonna tell people. There's no stars in space.
Yeah, how does that work? So that works in a virtual reality, right?
Because I can walk outside here, I see plenty of stars, but when you get to the moon, there's no stars. Yeah, in a virtual world.
So did anyone ever end up taking a picture within a ruler from 30,000 feet and showing you curvature? I know you had that challenge out there.
No, I mean, yeah, there were a couple trolls that finally, I can't remember who focused on it initially. There was a one, was it McToon? I can't
Red's
remember.
Rhetoric?
But I can't remember. But for years, no one would. It was more of a
Sly Sparkane.
But the thing was, almost nobody sent me anything until one of the trolls was like, send him everything. And, you know, I think I got maybe a dozen emails. I didn't really get that many. But the point was, up until then, why didn't I get them every week or month or year? They didn't because, well, and again, Neil Tyson, whenever they sent it, well, here's the thing. It was really more of it was bait. It was me fishing, because once they got me, it's like, okay, here's Neil Tyson on stage that said at the Red Bull jump at 130,000 feet, there's no curvature. So
I got an interesting thing to tell you about that. You might be a little surprised.
Yeah, what's your plane picture showing you, man? Because you're not even at 40. So go ahead.
So this is probably going to blow your mind, Mark, but I don't have the pictures ready for you. But the Red Bull jump was actually just a hot air balloon footage that was superimposed over a guy in a green room jumping out of a stationary fixed craft. You know, it said Zenith on the side.
I would love to see that. And if it was,
it was all fake.
Yeah,
the whole thing. Yeah.
But even if it was all fake, again, it's not going to change my position, because Neil Tyson defended it at 130,000 feet. He's like,
so he said that here it is. I got the clip I put it into a video. Watch this. You got to hit the sound.
He should have never said that on stage, never in front of that many people.
Where is the sound?
It should be to the right. If you click on it, that stuff is flat. He said, top left.
It's up at the top.
There it is.
At that height, you don't
roll over to the left.
You don't see the curvature of the Earth if you are 2 millimeters above this beach ball.
So what we're showing here is the craft that they had. I know if Jason can rewind it back to the beginning after this. So you can see where it says Zenith on the side of the craft that he was jumping out of. As you can see, the decal moves here.
Oh.
See how it's not the same?
You just don't.
It's actual footage, though, of a higher balloon. And he's telling everybody it's flat, right?
And then I showed examples of wide-angle lenses curving horizontal.
This is Jaren's
I don't want to be a spoil, curmudgeon or anything. I just wanted you to put... I
throw this at people all the time.
That stuff is flat.
Wrong? Right? Are you saying that Neil Tyson, the biggest...
What's his name? Felix Baumgartner.
Pause it, Jay. What's that, Mark? Pardon?
Well, no, just, I put it to any of the trolls. I go, is Neil Tyson wrong?
There it is.
Neil Tyson says that you cannot see the curvature for 130,000 feet. Whether or not the Red Bull thing was legitimate or not. He was defending something. So if he says you can't see it from 130,000 feet, and I've got people saying they can see it from a mountaintop, well, we got a problem. But then again, they're conditioned. They want to, I don't get mad. I say, look, I understand you think you see it, but that's because you want to see it. I've had a lot of people, come to me why I came up with the challenge. And they said, oh, I've seen it outside my airplane. I go, really? Have you? Because I say, if that's where I came up with the ruler thing. And then if they actually did send me something, which is why I sent that clip so few times for a while, I'd send them that clip. And I said, because your high priest says you can't, not even close. So
you can't. He's right. Like,
yeah. So who's right here, you or him? And I've even had a couple physicists come back. It's like, well, Neil doesn't represent us. Like, he absolutely represents you because he's on television and you're not. So anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, you can see here, this is a shot of Felix Baumgartner jumping into the ball foam pit.
Wow.
Right. So the whole thing was staged, but the footage was real. What they do, and I think they might be using combinations of hot air balloons and stuff with their rocket launches as well. They take a hot air balloon, they send it up, they film it, and then they take that footage and they superimpose it because you can see this. And again, if you mute it, Jason, and let it play, again, when you see the decal on the side of the craft that Baumgartner was supposedly in, and they do this to create division. They want to divide and control.
I've talked to producers and I've said, when the Felix thing came out years ago, and I said, why did you run the picture of, with a severe curvature of the earth? And they go, because it's a good image. I go, yeah, but it's not authentic. He goes, it doesn't matter. It's a good image. And again, it's the Mark Twain quote, in which he said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And I get it. So
they ran with it. Right?
Yeah, why
and
not?
they had the one camera that showed it flat, and then they had the one distorted camera with the fisheye to show you a curve. Right.
And Neil called him out, which again was surprising. He's helped us more than he's hurt us.
Yeah.
Neil sticks his foot in his mouth a few times, but he doesn't know he's doing it.
He absolutely has. You're right. And we'd love to have him on and talk about virtual reality. Let's really talk about
I think he'd talk about it. I think if you brought him on, he'd actually talk about it because he gets it.
Instead of just flat Earth, we can talk about the floor. We love to talk about that, but let's talk about the sky and the boundaries and everything, right?
All right. So what else? Do you want to go for another 15 or 20? Is that?
I think we got through the tabs.
But maybe hang on after
we're done with the tabs. Is there any questions in the?
Yeah, let's do that, and after two, hang on a bit after Mark. We'll just go over a few things before.
I don't think so. No, that's fine.
Yeah, let's.
There was a question. Let me scroll through here.
If there are any questions,
I did see his worst
that are not gossip related.
I have to go back. It's been a while. There was some questions. Yeah, no gossip. No, we're not trying to
tonight. If you want gossip, listen to my last two interviews.
Except for having Jaron or MC Toon or Will Duffy, but they won't see Mark. Now they won't even talk to us because they say we don't believe in anything's real. That's what they say about us now. It's sad.
Well, the reality's flexible. Well, why wouldn't it be flexible? I mean, if we're talking about something that's virtual, that's something that's digital, then it's pliable. And you don't know it, when you're in it, of course, because like anything, when you're in the gaming world, you're stuck inside the guardrails. But outside looking in, if you can envision it, it's very easy to see. And again, the stuff we were talking about earlier that screams it, the double slit experiment, neuroscience versus free will, all the optical things, all the glitches that we run into from time to time. It all points in that direction. And our ever-increasing technology, the fact that we're catching up to it, that our ultimate goal, again, don't forget this, every major media company in the world, their ultimate goal is to create a virtual reality, a full-blown matrix. Even though they know full well, like the guy that said the holodeck will be the last invention. And we've had science fiction movies that have talked about this. If we got to that point, reality would break down because once you were in, how would you know when you got out? The line
That's a great point.
Which is, if you were in a dream that was so real, how would you know when you woke up?
You're nailing it. So we say that they're trying to create a virtual reality inside of the virtual reality to actually escape for what they've done, the evil people, it looks like.
Which is why the 13th Floor was such an underrated movie. And
great movie. I
don't want to give away the spoiler, but that was the crux of it was, how did you know? And I know Star Trek stole a little bit. Well, Star Trek stole from the original text, but that's what we're talking about here. If we can get to the point where, and to Jason's point, it's probably not going to happen because we haven't figured out a way to attach the senses. Right now, it's just sight and sound. The other three senses, we can't figure it out.
They can't. You're right. Absolutely. So the first question that came in was, Mark, this was from Zorst. Are you aware of Project Stargate and the Monroe Institute?
Stargate, yes. The Monroe Institute, not by name. Are you?
You probably do know about it. Monroe was the guy that.
What would they do? Is it tied to CERN?
Binaural beats.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And like out of body experiences, that kind of stuff.
Sure. And by the way, I also think it's not an accident that remote viewers, that when they first start out with regular cosmology, they only see the globe. But once they start digging into stuff like this, the world completely changes. And I think that's not by accident, because if you know full well, if remote viewers were allowed by default to see the world in different aspects, they'd be talking about it all the time. They'd be like, dude, forget about remote viewing my body.
There's control mechanisms on those etherical levels.
There you go.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you have them on there?
I met the guy who created what was called, Chemtrails are demonic. It was this rage that went through the internet. And I actually met the guy that he asked for projected, and he was on the team that invented all that. And he said it was like there was controllers in place at a high level that kept you in those gates. Very dark.
I don't want to do too many parallels with games, but it's true. Not only is the software written, but you have admins that go around and make sure things are working the way they should. You can't see them, you can't hear them. They're the invisible players. They're they're like little floating invisible balls that fly around the game, and they look at people. And it's like, all right, is he doing his way? Is she doing? You doing? Yeah, okay, we're fine, we're good. And they do this stuff. So, and that's
aren't they called Damians?
Daemons.
Daemons.
Well, in the games.
Like
code
computers.
And sometimes most of the time they're called, well, they got different names.
But Mark, you're talking about inside of a game, there's admins that make sure the game is running smooth and people are adhering to the rules.
Right, but they're literally flying around inside the game. They're invisible.
That's crazy.
They're like spirits. But would you have automated control systems also to be like, yeah, in case somebody figures out remote viewing, let's make sure they can only see so much.
Yeah, really good point.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Come on, let me throw one more in. When I was doing tech support for the video game company that I was working for in Colorado, the number one call that I got, and that was probably 1 out of every 2 calls, 50% of the calls I got was exactly one thing. Kids wanted God mode. They wanted the cheat codes.
Invisibility.
Why this world doesn't allow cheat codes, and why when we make really sophisticated games, anyone that tries to hack their way through is immediately caught and banned for life and thrown out. You can't allow that sort of thing.
Good point. That's like the fallen angel story, right?
There you go. Or the same reason why, and we know nobody's done it yet because we're gotten away with it, or maybe we erased part of what happened, because out of all the things that have been real or faked, I mean, so everyone knows about UFOs and Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and stuff. Nobody has pretended to be a superhero.
No supernatural yet for a long time.
Not in the world.
Not for a long time.
Enhanced beings. I mean, yeah, you can talk about vampires and werewolves, but in the modern world, no enhanced beings are allowed, period.
It might come back.
Well, I mean,
prepared.
Because if you did, all of a sudden, it would turn into, okay, are we talking about potential deity? Because people, like to worship, and somebody lands, all you have to do is put on a cape. Oh, look what we got there. So anyway, people look for the hacks all the time. So yes, backtrack. Control systems, absolutely necessary all the time to keep people from going, you don't want them to jump the guardrail. You jump the guardrail, you don't want them to come back and talk about it.
Absolutely. So we get another question. Jason, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. My only question, he asks, will Mark continue maybe to investigate the stereographic biblical virtual reality? And will you think about sharing this with your audience?
Yes, I will absolutely look into this. When this show is over, send me your links. Again, I am sorry that I haven't been ignoring you guys. I've been kind of busy, especially recently. But I love stuff like this, and believe it or not, there's not a lot of people in the community that I'll be as blunt as I can on air. Look, you guys are into some advanced stuff, And this is the general public has a tough time. One of the reasons why the Antarctic thing didn't have, I told people, I go, look, it's not going to have much of an impact one way or the other, because it's too tough to explain to people. The general population just doesn't get it. But I love it. I will share it with other people. I will say, you know what, if you're into this, and definitely when we have back chat conversations, I'll say, you know, you might be ready for this. This might be
we hope
cool stuff. I like
and
it.
Jay Skills continued that off with thank you very much, Mark, for coming on, and he thanked both of us. Absolutely. And thank you, Jay Skills, for being here. Looking for some more questions. We don't do super chats or anything like that. No, we don't have anything. We just want to have fun and share the truth. Eddie the man was quite active tonight, Mark, and testified to meeting you in Toronto and said he enjoyed that very much. I don't know if you know Eddie the man very well.
He'd have to send me a picture. Did we take a selfie together? I meet a lot of people.
He might say that in the chat.
Well, he can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Eddie, let me know. If we took a picture together when we were in Toronto, that was a few years ago. Just so you know, that was the first film festival. That was the premiere. Behind the Curve was the Toronto Film Festival.
Yeah, I remember that. That was when we found out too. Jaron was at the end, and everybody was quite upset that he was saying that, you know, they took his context clip out of place, that he was saying that he filmed The Curve or whatever.
The power of editing.
But that paled in comparison to what took place with Will. And
yeah. Again, that will have a limited impact. I am sorry that it has disrupted some people's lives, but at the same time, it's galvanized the community. I will say that.
Well, I'd like to hear the people that are pawing the ball, Patricia Steer, Robbie Davidson. We've been trying to get a hold of these people for years. I did the one podcast with Patricia. Jason met her. You went to her two of her mixers, showed her Clouds Behind the Sun. We are not about, so we've been argumentative and we've been combative before because we were trying to reach people. We warned people that we were going to get more and more loud, and it didn't work to the way we wanted it to. And I admitted, and, you know, I apologize for saying negative things about you, Mark, and about everybody else in the community.
Look, in our community, of course we have different things. You know, we all, 90% of us agree, you know, at the end, which is why we don't have any fights at the conferences or meetups, that we don't believe in, you know, the globe. There's a lot of things wrong with the heliocentric model. No question. And I'll be perfectly blunt with you guys. It's like, look, I respect you more. One of the reasons I'm here is you guys never quit. It's like here we are 10 years later, and you guys are still hammering away at it. It's like, look, I give you respect for that. It's like, yeah, we may not see eye to eye on some things, and yes, you of course you stir up trouble, but so does other people stir up trouble.
But we're not looking for that as much.
I know.
And anymore.
Well, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Again, you've been great tonight. I've enjoyed every second, and you guys had some great questions, and you've shown me some fantastic stuff. And it's not often that I get to talk about, you know, what one of the original inspirations for the Flat Earth Clues, which was, look, I came from the gaming world, and then eventually got into this, and it was still in my. I'm a lifelong gamer. I love the whole virtual universe.
It's the best way to look at it, really. And so we have another question from Solid Tank. Why do you think NPCs, Mark, react so badly to these kinds of discussions?
Because NPCs were always designed to have limited responses. So you got to remember where NPCs came from. NPCs originally, well, after the the mud dungeons, they were just notes on the ground, you know, on a tree. That's all they were. They were just notes on where to go next. That's all NPCs were. It's like, oh, hey, where should I go? There's a note on the tree. You read the note. And then it's like, oh, maybe we should turn the note into a person. Hey, okay, you just walk up to this person. And then it's like, hey, maybe we should have this person walk around. And they just evolved from there. Then the people had families. You have to find them and all this stuff. NPCs, but as much as you want them to give you every response possible, they're not perfect mimics. They are limited. They have limited responses. That's all.
The bar is at the down of the saloon's at the left, down the end of the road. They say the same thing over and over again.
There's only so many choices you have, and which is why, again, look up for the person that asked the question. Look up the Turing test.
Yeah,
you know, which is, if you want to have fun with them, come up with a test that was only, I'm not going to go over mine tonight, but come up with a test, a series of questions. It's straight out of Blade Runner, by the way. You know, the Blade Runner test was just a Turing test. That you could ask a machine to trick it into, you know, that you would know.
Glitching out.
Yeah, let you know what you're talking to, an actual self-aware person or basically an NPC.
The other interesting things are TV shows that I don't hear you talk about that I think are excellent that show all the virtual reality type stuff. Mr. Robot is another one that have you seen?
Good. Yep.
I really like that one. They really haven't made any good content for a long time, as well as Westworld. I definitely thought that's definitely a virtual reality show.
First season of Westworld was Westworld excellent.
So
Altered Carbon,
crazy good virtual reality show, right?
Yeah.
That one you get the whole idea of being put into a torture state for eternity. Like, what happens if you could put that on loop?
Various episodes of Black Mirror. Black Mirror haunts me to this day because it's so close to you know, he says it's like 20 minutes in the future or whatever it is. Yeah, which is why it's spooky. He doesn't even like writing them, from what I hear. But the virtual reality stuff, I think they also limited amount of those because why? That's the opposite of what you want to do with the NPCs. You don't want them to catch on.
So with Westworld, when they were on the train and they put the hat on, was that when they went inside of a virtual reality and then the rest of the show was just done in the imaginary dream world? Or did they actually go into a stage like Truman Show type enclosure?
Good. I think it was more of a Truman Show. I know it was more of a Truman. Oh God, I don't even want to.
It's a hard one. It's a hard one.
It's hardware, but it's not real, and again. Look at before you get too far into it. Watch the original '70s version.
The old one. I haven't seen that yet.
I'll watch it. I mean, it was groundbreaking, but the effects were so limited on what you could do. But no, I love all the virtual stuff. I love the concept. I love the fact that companies are trying to get there, but at the same time, not realizing the consequences of if they got there. But to Jason's point, I don't think this, because of the senses, it's too tricky. Yeah. Mostly because of the insurance side of things, which is everything, again, stealing from the Matrix, everything we know and learn is electrochemical. Well, messing with that is biological, and I mean, come on, there are too many lawsuit happy people out there that are willing to sue for just about anything. You get somebody jacked in wrong, and their mind gets screwed up. And the Matrix is a nice concept, but tricky to do. Anyway, anything else?
Yeah, well, I think it's been a great conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. I've had fun. And by the way, I love, I got to remember, I'm staring at Ronnie's green screen this entire time. So it isn't lost on me that we're talking about virtual reality. Well, Ronnie, you don't see it. I see Ronnie just in front of a green screen, and I don't see Jason at all. I know you're down here somewhere over in the corner and stuff, but that's awesome.
If you see the replay on the big screen from the YouTube channel, we're actually not in front of a green screen. But great job. It was really fun. I guess this has been a decade in the making from an undisclosed location. We have Mark Sargent, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. And if you ever want to do another one of these, and if you've got specific biblical cosmology things, because I know you could probably do an entire show on that. I'd love to rattle those off as well.
Yeah, we definitely want to, for sure.
Let's stay in touch.
Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.
Let's stick around. Yeah. Let's do the outro song and we'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Jason, do you want me to say it out?
Absolutely.
You're only going to hear this on the Yahawashai News Networks.